Chapter 22:13. For the current Yi Shiwen, there was no stronger thought than flying to the desolate antiquity to kill the Abyss Demon Lord. Yi Shiwen first went to the Blood Prison and selected 10 peak myth existences and hundreds of myth experts from the Flying Cloud Castle. He was going to bring these people back as the foundation of his forces. The one leading the group was the third elder of Sky-Bearing Fortress, a powerful elder of the Horned Demon race, Fei Yunluan. However, he was not a demon and looked no different from a human. The only difference was that he had a devil horn on his forehead that emitted a demonic energy. It was said that this race was forever cursed by a great expert of the demon race, causing this race to be cursed for generations to come. However, the demon race did not accept this curse. Unlike when he left, this time Yi Shiwen's speed was extremely fast. He just kept tearing the space. Every time he appeared, he would travel a very long distance. The myth experts he brought were also stored in the Tianyuan mirror. He had the spatial coordinates of the Xian world recorded, so he was not afraid of getting lost. For him, having the power of a god was simply an earth-shaking change. He did not have to worry about energy consumption. The whole world could be used by him, and the consumption would be immediately replenished. There was no need to worry at all. This was also Yi Shiwen's biggest weakness and shortcoming. Now with the breakthrough of his power, he had made up for it in one go. He no longer had to worry about this problem. In just one day and one night, he had already returned to the Xian world from the deification abyss in the depths of the universe. Haha, I'm finally back. Yi Shiwen's face showed a little smile. His figure appeared in the sky of the Xian world. Behind him, more than 100 experts of the Sky-Bearing Castle and the Flying Cloud Castle followed behind Yi Shiwen respectfully. Although Yi Shiwen transferred them out of the blood prison, Yi Shiwen did not mistreat them. The supply of various bloodstones was doubled, and the treatment was not worse than in the blood prison. What's more, they didn't have any room to resist. They had all heard of Yi Shiwen's strong performance in the battle. He was called the #1 person under Dao confirmation. He had been practicing in the Divine Transformation Tower for more than a year, so they didn't know how strong he was now. Moreover, they followed Yi Shiwen back to an ordinary plane to fight. In their opinion, wasn't it a matter of minutes to conquer that ordinary plane? There was no risk at all. This is the profound world. Someone asked curiously. Not everyone knew about the mysterious world, but since Yi Shiwen came from the mysterious world, they naturally knew more about it. The profound world was not a low-level plane. On the contrary, it was a high-level plane, but it was different from a man-made core plane like the transforming god abyss. Yes, this is the profound world, the core of hundreds and thousands of planes nearby. Many profound realm martial artists will ascend to the profound world. Yi Shiwen nodded. 7 years ago, I left the profound world. I didn't expect to return so soon. 7 years had passed. For them, it was like a snap of a finger. However, he was completely different from how he was 7 years ago. If that's the case, then let's go, Lord, Fei Yunluan said. Yes, let's go. Profound world, I'm back. However, as soon as he returned to the profound world, he immediately flew into a rage. This was because he discovered that all the major forces in the profound world had joined forces under a connection. Their target was actually the human race. They wanted to completely uproot the human race forces in the profound world, and the leaders of the allied forces were the Divine Alliance and the Heaven Wasteland Palace. Yi Shiwen was extremely angry. Before he left, the Nameless Dao College had clearly warned all the major forces not to attack the human race. He did not expect the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Alliance to completely go back on their word. Originally, he only planned to stay in the profound world for a while before rushing to the ancient desolation. Now it seemed that it was impossible. He had to solve the problem of the profound world first. At this moment, Bai Jiansheng, who was badly battered by the major forces in the profound world, was under great pressure. Even if it was just the Heaven Wasteland Palace or the Divine Union, they would still be unimaginably powerful opponents for the current human race. Moreover, the major forces of the mysterious world had joined forces to deal with the human race. Although they were not as active as the Divine Union or the Heaven Wasteland Palace, each of them only had one mythological expert, it would still be a terrifying number. The Allied forces consisted of tens of millions of elites from the major forces. They completely surrounded the human race's territory. Even if they all had ulterior motives, and not all of them were sincere in attacking the human race in the profound world, these countless elites were enough to completely destroy the human race. At the end of the day, the human race was still too weak. It was completely different from the forces that had existed for countless years. Although the Divine Alliance and the Heaven Wasteland Palace did not dare to do anything to the human race because of the nameless Tao College's warning after Yi Shiwen's departure, the human race in the profound world was powerless without Yi Shiwen's presence. There was simply no way for them to maintain their expansion. They could only stop and consolidate what they had obtained. In an incomparably huge city, countless dark clouds gathered densely. Tens of thousands of Allied forces had completely surrounded the entire city. This was a city of the human race, and there were countless humans living within it. At this moment, all of them could only shiver in fear as they looked up at the sky, at the malevolent faces of the humans. A golden-armored, burly man walked out from the void and shouted with a booming voice, "Are you going to surrender or not? I'll only give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't surrender, don't blame us for being ruthless and not leaving a single blade of grass behind." The humans in the city did not change after hearing the words of the golden-armored, burly man. Their bodies were trembling, but their faces were extremely resolute. "You want us to surrender and become your slaves? Dream on. Kill us if you can." A man flew out from within the city. His face was young and somewhat handsome. He was also clad in iron armor and was in a battle-ready state. "Yishan, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. As long as you are willing to surrender obediently, you can still command these humans. Otherwise, you should know the consequences, right?" The golden-armored burly man said coldly. "What consequences are worse than the destruction of a nation? Since we have already come to this point, don't waste your breath. Kill us all if you can. Otherwise, blood will flow like a river." The young man was Yishan. His body was surrounded by a circle of mythical nomological laws, making him look like a deity. "Yishan, I can see that you are a talent. It is indeed not easy for you to cultivate to the mythical realm at such a young age. The Heaven Wasteland Temple does not care about your background. As long as you are willing to pledge your loyalty, everything is negotiable." The golden-armored burly man was still unwilling to give up and tried to persuade the young man in front of him. "Let's fight. Cut the crap. If you continue like this, Big Brother Yi Shiwen will definitely kill you all when he returns. I will see how long you can be arrogant in hell." Yi Shan's expression was firm. As the supreme commander of this war zone, there was no retreat for him. Ever since he entered the mythical realm, he had matured a lot. Compared to his original lively personality, he had become a bit more resolute. "Huh? Are you talking about Yi Shiwen? He offended someone in a faraway place that he could not afford to offend. He can't even protect himself. And now you expect him to protect you? What a joke. Since you are so stubborn, I will send you on your way." The golden-armored burly man was a bit angry when he saw that he had no way to persuade Yishan several times. "Let's go. Flatten this area today. Leave no one alive from the human race." A series of battle cries came from behind him. The tens of thousands of soldiers all shouted loudly, their voices shaking the sky. Although the faces of the humans below were somewhat pale and their bodies were trembling slightly, they were incomparably firm. This was because they knew very well that once they surrendered, what awaited them would be a miserable fate. That would be a punishment more terrifying than death. Compared to that, death was not that hard to accept. Did I offend someone I can't afford to offend? Why don't I know? However, the Heaven Wasteland Palace actually dared to go back on their word. "I think you are all tired of living." Suddenly, a leisurely voice was heard. A figure tore through space and arrived. Hundreds of people appeared in the void. "You are Yi Shiwen." The golden-armored, burly man's expression changed the moment he saw the person who had arrived. Even his voice changed completely. How could he not know this person? It could be said that this person was the nemesis of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. The Heaven Wasteland Palace had suffered many losses in his hands over the years. It could be said that all the losses they had suffered over the years added up could not be compared to Yi Shiwen's. That's right. I didn't expect there to be someone who knows me. Yi Shiwen smiled faintly. However, his smile was as cold as the pale moonlight. However, it's a pity. If the Heaven Wasteland Palace had obediently complied with the agreement, I would have let you go. Since you have gone back on your word, you are destined to perish. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and completely destroyed the imposing manner of the tens of thousands of elite soldiers of the Heaven Wasteland Palace. They were completely unable to suppress the humans in the city. The golden-armored, burly man's expression immediately turned exceptionally ugly. Yi Shiwen was very strong. Moreover, he was even stronger than the legends. He had completely destroyed their imposing manner in an instant. Yi Shiwen slowly walked to Yi Shan's side and could not help but say with some emotion, "You have grown up after all these years. Yi Shiwen, don't be arrogant. This is no longer the time for you to be arrogant." Chapter 22:14. Yi Shiwen, don't be so arrogant. This is no longer the time for you to be arrogant. The golden-armored man roared. He knew how terrifying Yi Shiwen was and knew that he could not fight against him. Yi Shiwen was a terrifying existence that could fight against the palace master. Long-winded, Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He raised his left hand and suddenly clenched his fist in the direction of the golden-armored man. The golden-armored man suddenly felt a terrifying force contracting around him. Countless principles formed into silk threads and suddenly pressed down with a loud rumble. Boom! A legend expert was easily crushed by Yi Shiwen. He did not even have the chance to resist. Both sides were dumbfounded. Neither the human race nor the Heaven Wasteland Palace had expected that a legend expert would die so easily. He did not even have the chance to resist. Even Yi Shan could not help but widen his eyes in shock. He had made rapid progress over the years. With the resources brought by the expansion of the human race, he had stepped into the legend realm in one fell swoop. However, compared to his big brother Yi, he seemed to be even more inferior. The gap that could be seen with the naked eye was now even more indistinct. He could only look up to Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen's return was a pleasant surprise. With Yi Shiwen around, many people immediately calmed down. Many people had heard of Yi Shiwen's name. Yi Shiwen turned to the more than 100 people and said, "Attack, kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive." Yes, the more than 100 people replied in unison. Their imposing manner was like a rainbow as they charged into the crowd like a ferocious tiger descending the mountain. Yi Shan was dumbfounded as he looked at the more than 100 people. Any one of them was not weaker than him, and there were even existences that could make him tremble. However, it seemed that these people were actually Yi Shiwen's subordinates. He did not know where he found such terrifying subordinates. What exactly had he experienced all these years? Although the remaining more than 10,000 people of the Heaven Wasteland Palace were elites among elites, how could they be compared to the more than 100 legend experts? They were almost slaughtered in an instant. Seeing that the army of the Heaven Wasteland Hall had been defeated, the many humans in the city barely stopped trembling. Regardless of their origins, there were a few experts who were clearly not from the human race. However, they were all brought over by Yi Shiwen and could naturally be trusted. And now, Yi Shiwen was the only one who could be trusted. "Big brother Yi, I heard that you were taken away by the nameless Tao College. How are you?" Yi Shan stepped forward and asked. He no longer had the carefree demeanor he had in the past. He looked rather composed. "Not bad." Yi Shiwen smiled and didn't mention anything about him being in the God Transformation Abyss. After all, there was no need. If Yi Shan had the opportunity to be recruited by the God Transformation Abyss in the future, then he would naturally have the opportunity to go there. If there was no opportunity, then it didn't matter whether he knew or not. "Big brother Yi, hurry up and say brother bye. The Allied army is attacking the ancestral ground right now. Brother Bai has already activated all of the defenses, but they're still being pushed back. These damned bastards." Yi Shan gritted his teeth as tears flickered in his eyes. "Don't worry, now that I'm back, it's time for these people to die. You'll be responsible for cleaning up here." I'll go first. Yi Shiwen also nodded, knowing that time waited for no one. Immediately, a huge rift was torn open, and battle cries could be heard coming from the other side of the rift. He had actually torn open a spatial passage to the ancestral land of the human race in the sealed world. It was conceivable that his cultivation had already reached an incredible level. He and the hundreds of legend experts leaped in one after another. Yi Shiwen was the first to come out, and an attack came straight at him. On the battlefield, how could the sudden appearance of a spatial transmission formation not attract the attention of others? It was a legend expert who had discovered it and immediately attacked. If it was someone else, he might have been caught off guard and succeeded. Unfortunately, he had encountered Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen stretched out his right hand and directly slapped out. Bang! All of the attacks that the legend expert had unleashed were completely suppressed on the spot. His entire body also exploded in the air. The whole process seemed to take a long time, but in fact it was just a blink of an eye. It was really fast to an astonishing degree. Yi Shiwen had already appeared on the battlefield. As far as his eyes could see, the whole battlefield had entered into a white-hot stage. The ancestral ground of the human race in the mysterious world was the original base of the human race in the mysterious world. It was also the most elite part of the human race's territory. Countless experts had gathered here, but they were still being defeated by the tens of millions of allied forces. Legend experts could be seen everywhere, directing the army to attack. Whether it was in terms of legend experts or mysterious realm experts below the legend realm, the human race was at a huge disadvantage, especially when it came to legend experts. So far, there were only a few legend experts. If it wasn't for the ancient formation arranged by the ancestors to resist, the first wave of attack would have been defeated by the tens of millions of allied forces. The situation had already reached an extremely critical point. Countless experts of the human race had died together with the attacking enemies. Many times, they couldn't even die together with the enemy and were killed by the legend experts. He saw that Bai Jiansheng was constantly fighting, but it was useless. He was only one person and couldn't protect so many people. He could only rely on the formation to resist. The battle was becoming more and more one-sided. Seeing this scene, Yi Shiwen's eyes directly turned red, and his breathing became heavy. He said in a cold voice, kill all who come. No one can leave." Yes. The hundreds of experts behind him responded one after another. There were many battle maniacs among them, and seeing such a huge scene, they couldn't help but become excited. This was like throwing hundreds of fierce tigers into the midst of tens of millions of sheep, sweeping all the way. Not to mention that there were 10 peak legend experts led by Fei Yunluan. These people were the existence closest to the Tao confirming level. Whether it was an ordinary legend, mysterious realm, or celestial realm expert, none of them were a match for them. Wherever they passed, a large number of enemies died. Who are these people? Yi Shiwen's speed was so fast that they didn't get the slightest news at all. They only saw hundreds of terrifying legend experts suddenly appear all at once. What's more, these hundreds of legend experts turned out to be high-level legend experts above the 7th level of Paong realm. They were not people that many of them who had just entered the legend realm could compare with. There were almost no taboos when these terrifying legend experts fought. As soon as they attacked, hundreds of experts were all killed, turning into a mass of flesh and blood. In the sky, the blood of experts rained down. Under the guidance of countless experts' blood essence, this ancestral land of the human clan didn't know what kind of treasures of heaven and earth would be born. Because this was not the ordinary death of hundreds of thousands of people. The total number of people added up to tens of millions, including the casualties on the human clan side. It was simply unimaginable how many people had died. Patriarch, who were those people? Bai Jiansheng, who was in the middle of fighting, had just retreated from the surprise attack of 2 legend experts. And just as he was slightly relieved, someone next to him had already come forward to report. He looked into the distance and saw hundreds of legend experts directly killing into the coalition army, killing everyone they saw without the slightest scruple. Any one of these experts had a very terrifying aura, and they were not inferior to the old patriarch of the human clan. Where did these people come from? Bai Jianxing was shocked, and he couldn't believe it. Although these people should be regarded as their allies, they suddenly rushed out to kill, and their combat power was too terrifying. They were even more terrifying than the tens of millions of coalition army, because all of them were existences at the 7th level of Powang realm, and among them, there were even 10 incomparably terrifying existences at the peak of the legend realm. With so many terrifying experts gathered together, if they had evil intentions towards the human clan, it would be nothing more than a matter of minutes to destroy the human clan. Thinking of this, as the current patriarch of the human clan, how could his heart remain calm? Suddenly, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, and he was shocked, but when he saw the person clearly, his face revealed a somewhat surprised and happy expression. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? Yi Shiwen, it's you. Then these people... His mind turned, and almost immediately realized that these people were probably related to Yi Shiwen. Yes, I brought them here, so you don't have to worry, Yi Shiwen said with a smile. Hearing Yi Shiwen's words, Bai Jianxing finally breathed a sigh of relief, and a kind of unprecedented fatigue surged in his heart. As the patriarch of the human clan, during this period of time, being attacked by the coalition army had long exhausted him both physically and mentally, and he was ready to die on the battlefield. Unexpectedly, there was a turn of events, and Yi Shiwen, who had been away for many years, had actually returned. Coupled with the hundreds of high-level legend realm experts that Yi Shiwen brought, the situation suddenly turned around. Compared to the tens of millions of coalition army, the human clan's weakest point was the number of top legend realm experts. Now that the people that Yi Shiwen brought had suddenly made up for this gap, the situation was completely reversed, especially the 10 experts at the peak of the legend realm, who were even more ferocious, directly beating the tens of millions of coalition army into retreat. In the face of absolute tyrannical strength, numbers were simply not enough. Who are you, and why are you interfering in the affairs of the Xian world? Suddenly, a loud shout came from the coalition army, and a figure leaped out. It was the Heaven Wasteland Temple Lord, who was flustered and exasperated. I can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it without even looking for it. Let me meet him. Chapter 22:15. The Heaven Wasteland Temple Master was thoroughly exasperated. This time, the Allied forces were led by the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Temple. They wanted to completely uproot Yi Shiwen's foundation in the Xian world. Therefore, 7 to 8 million of the Allied forces were experts from the Heaven Wasteland Temple and the Divine Union. It could be said that most of their elites were already here. How could they withstand such a large number of casualties? It could be said that hundreds or thousands of experts were dying in battle every second. This made his heart bleed. They might die in an instant, but it would take hundreds or thousands of years to nurture them. Every death or injury was a blow to their vitality. What shocked him even more was that these hundreds of mythical experts were not weaklings. On the contrary, they were all experts. Ordinary mythical realm experts simply could not stop them and would be blasted to death easily. What frightened him even more was that there were actually 10 extremely tyrannical mythical realm experts who were not much weaker than him, and some of them were not even weaker than him. Where did these people come from? As the core of many nearby worlds, the Xian world had many myth realm experts, but at his level, myth realm experts were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Moreover, he knew every single one of them and could even name them, so where did these people come from? There were hundreds of high-level mythical realm experts and 10 peak mythical realm experts. Even the Heaven Wasteland Temple would not be able to produce such high-end combat power. Under the attack of hundreds of mythical realm experts, the entire battlefront was on the verge of collapse. Among the crowd, many of the myth realm experts who had been mediating and commanding the army flew out at this moment and gathered together. More than 1,000 myth realm experts flew out, and they formed a mighty force. This was an allied force that had gathered the entire Xian world. Even if they did not put in any effort, each family would still send 1 or 2 mythical realm experts, not to mention the Heaven Wasteland Temple and the Divine Union. That was why they were able to gather so many mythical realm experts. There was no lack of powerful existences above the 7th level of the Powang realm. One after another, They went to face the enemy and barely controlled the battlefront and did not completely collapse. Even so, after this assault, there were hundreds of thousands of casualties among the tens of millions of troops. All the major forces had suffered great losses. Everyone was curious as to where these top experts had come from. The martial arts they were using did not seem to be the martial arts they were familiar with in the profound world. It was possible to say that there were one or two peerless martial arts in the profound world that no one knew about, but there were hundreds of them, and any one of them was not ordinary, so how could they not know about it? Who the hell are you? Why are you interfering in the matters of my profound world? The heaven desolate hall master roared. Humph, long time no see, hall master heaven wasteland. How have you been? Yi Shiwen's figure suddenly appeared in front of the heaven wasteland temple master and said with a cold smile, "It's you, Yi Shiwen?" The heaven wasteland palace lord was startled. He recognized Yi Shiwen at a glance, and it was too profound. He had never suffered such a big loss in his life, but he had suffered such a big loss at the hands of Yi Shiwen. Moreover, the heaven wasteland palace lord was injured because of Yi Shiwen and could not wait to tear Yi Shiwen into pieces. If that's the case, the lord of heaven wasteland palace was not stupid. He immediately guessed that these experts were related to Yi Shiwen. Others might not know where Yi Shiwen had gone, but he knew very well that it was the deity transformation abyss. The reason why so many people were afraid of the nameless Tao College was not because of the 2 or 3 people who stayed behind like kittens, but because of the terrifying existence behind them, the deity transformation abyss. There were experts who were more powerful than him everywhere, and it was easy to pull out 1,000 or 800 experts from the mythical realm. It was the center of the universe that he knew. Therefore, the words of the nameless Tao College carried enormous weight. At their level, they more or less knew some details about the nameless Tao College. Not to mention that he was a disciple of the nameless Tao College more than 10,000 years ago. At that time, he already knew about the existence of the deity transformation abyss, and also knew that there were countless experts in it. However, he did not expect Yi Shiwen to come out so quickly and even bring so many experts with him, which was far beyond his expectations. He originally thought that Yi Shiwen would not be able to truly reach the level of a threat within 100 years, but it had only been a few years. Damn it, I should have killed him at all costs. Although this would have caused me to face the wrath of the nameless Tao College. Would the nameless Tao College completely eradicate the Heaven Wasteland Palace just because of a dead person? But at this time, it was too late to say anything. That's right, I didn't expect you to be so stupid. Yi Shiwen squinted his eyes and said with a smile, What a pity, what a pity. If you had obediently followed the original agreement, I might not have done anything to you. But since you don't know how to appreciate kindness, then all of you shall go to hell. Yi Shiwen, don't be too arrogant. You did bring back a lot of experts, but do you still want to go against the entire Xian world? The Heaven Wasteland Palace Master's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. So what? It's just a group of chickens and dogs. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back, without the slightest fear. If he had not truly broken through, he might not have such combat power. However, he had already stepped into the Tao confirmation level, so no matter how many of them came, they would just be sending themselves to death. Redemption Fist. The Heaven Wasteland Palace Master suddenly attacked. Boom! An incomparably powerful and peerless divine fist struck horizontally across the sky, directly forcing Yi Shiwen to go forward. Too weak, Yi Shiwen sneered. Then a big hand stretched out and clawed out. 5 blood-colored cracks were produced, and the Redemption Fist was destroyed cleanly. How is this possible? The Heaven Wasteland Palace Master could not believe it. Although Yi Shiwen had previously fought against him and the leader of the Divine Union, to a large extent, it was still because he had borrowed the power of the deities. It could not be considered as his own trial, so it was nothing. Moreover, it couldn't be compared to how easy it was to lift something heavy as if it was light. Yi Shiwen had broken his attack almost effortlessly, and he had not even used his full strength. This was the most terrifying thing. This is nothing. Isn't your redemption eye very powerful? Let's see if it can stop me. Yi Shiwen sneered, clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and directly blasted out the human Tao fist. Boom! It seemed to be just an ordinary punch, and not even a strange phenomenon appeared. However, the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master could feel great fear in his heart, as if he would be blasted to death in the next second. It directly blasted in front of the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master. A space distortion appeared in front of the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master. It was his redemption eye, which distorted space and protected him at all times. Another eye appeared on his forehead, bursting with boundless divine power. However, it only persisted for a moment before it was blasted into smithereens by Yi Shiwen's seemingly ordinary fist. It was completely smashed. His power of redemption could not stop Yi Shiwen's fist at all, and was easily broken. Yi Shiwen reached out his hand, grabbed the redemption eye on the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master's forehead, and dug it out. Suddenly, blood splattered everywhere. The eye of redemption was constantly rotating in Yi Shiwen's hand. Then he crushed it. Countless blood essences and all kinds of magical mysteries were transferred into Yi Shiwen's body. They were absorbed by his mysterious space. Yi Shiwen ignored the scream of the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master and just closed his eyes to deduce. Not long after, an eye appeared on his forehead, flashing with the power of redemption. He directly burned a piece of divine source, deduced the power of redemption, and condensed the redemption eye on the spot. This also meant that the mystery of the redemption eye had almost been deduced by him. Just as Yi Shiwen had expected, the Eye of Redemption was indeed a very remarkable magical power. Condensing the Eye of Redemption was merely a beginner's skill. Therefore, it could not display its true power in the hands of the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master. Yi Shiwen had already cultivated the Redemption Eye to a level similar to that of the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master after a moment of deduction. This was the strength of his mysterious space. With the support of his powerful skills and cultivation, he was able to deduce this kind of divine martial art. However, how could an ordinary martial art move him? After all, he had more martial arts than he could learn. This is the Redemption Eye. Countless people had been quietly paying attention to Yi Shiwen from the moment he appeared. Everyone was completely shocked when they saw Yi Shiwen condensing the Eye of Redemption easily. The Redemption Eye was the famous magical power of the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master. It had accompanied him in battles all these years and made a name for himself. It was said that it was the magical power of the legendary Lord of Redemption. Later on, the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master accidentally obtained it and made great achievements for him. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen could condense the Redemption Eye so easily? He was simply abnormal. How could he let others live? In particular, the Heaven Wasteland Palace Master was dumbfounded. He covered the bloody hole on his head and widened his eyes in disbelief. He had cultivated the power of redemption for thousands of years before he could condense the Redemption Eye. Yi Shiwen had condensed the Redemption Eye in just a short while. How was it possible? However, he could feel that the Redemption Eye on Yi Shiwen's forehead was indeed genuine. It exuded a pure power of redemption. It was not just in shape, but had truly formed. In other words, Yi Shiwen had surpassed his thousands of years of effort in a short while. Thinking of this, he simply wanted to cry, but had no tears. He was even more horrified. For the first time, his heart was filled with fear for Yi Shiwen. It's a pretty good magical power. Unfortunately, it's wasted in your hands. Watch carefully. Today, I will let you see the real redemption fist. Yi Shiwen sneered. He clenched his fist, and the power of redemption frantically condensed. Chapter 22:16. The power of redemption condensed crazily on Yi Shiwen's body. It was even purer and purer than the Heaven Wasteland Temple Master's attack. He clenched his fist, and the power was distorted, transforming into a world of redemption. How is this possible? Impossible! The Heaven Wasteland Temple Master roared angrily. He was completely unreconciled and could not believe that his thousands of years of painstaking cultivation could not compare to Yi Shiwen's cultivation. He didn't know that Yi Shiwen's martial arts comprehension had already crossed the threshold of Dao confirmation. Coupled with the deduction of the mysterious space, he had reached the extreme. So, he could easily deduce all the mysteries of his power of redemption. It wasn't difficult at all. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist of redemption directly hit the Heaven Wasteland Temple Master's body and broke the redemption domain formed by the Eye of Redemption on the spot. After cultivating the power of redemption, Yi Shiwen finally understood that this distorted domain was the domain of redemption. It was very amazing. It was almost innately invincible. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to be defeated unless there was a much stronger force that could break it in an instant. Although his redemption domain was very strong, his own strength was far inferior to Yi Shiwen's. Moreover, after condensing the Eye of Redemption, he could easily see through the mysteries of this domain. There was no difficulty at all, and he broke it easily. Boom! The Heaven Wasteland Temple Master was seriously injured on the spot. All the defenses and instruments on his body exploded in an instant, and even he was injured by the explosion. Boom! He directly crashed into a mountain, and the entire mountain broke and collapsed, rolling down the hillside. Yi Shiwen's offensive followed like a shadow, and followed up with another slap. Don't kill me! The Heaven Wasteland Temple Master's mind collapsed on the spot. He should not have been so restless, but his spirit was affected by Yi Shiwen's power of redemption. At this time, he was actually afraid. I'll say it was someone who provoked us to attack the human race. It really wasn't our own idea. Everyone was dumbfounded, especially the countless experts of the Allied forces, who were completely killed. Was this something that the Heaven Wasteland Temple Master would say? Was this something that the Heaven Wasteland Temple Master, who was as strong as a god in their hearts, would say? Where was his integrity? Where was his character? Is this Yi Shiwen really so terrifying? It was completely unimaginable. They were completely unaware that the current Heaven Wasteland Temple Lord was completely overwhelmed by fear. He had never seen such a tyrannical expert, nor had anyone brought such a terrifying pressure to him. Trash! How dare you betray us? Die! Suddenly, a cold snort was heard as a terrifying force descended from the sky and landed on the body of the Heaven Wasteland Hall Master. The Heaven Wasteland Hall Master, who was already seriously injured, was killed on the spot, leaving no room for escape. Who dares to kill in front of me? Yi Shiwen sneered. He didn't make a move. He had been waiting for this moment. His big hand directly grabbed towards the void. With a sudden tremble, the void distorted. Then a huge crack was torn open in the void. With that attack just now, Yi Shiwen had grasped the opponent's coordinates and directly blasted it out. Bang! A figure barely dodged Yi Shiwen's big hand and staggered out of it. He looked at Yi Shiwen in disbelief. He had already hidden behind countless layers of space, but he was still caught by Yi Shiwen. How'd he do it? It was incredible. Yi Shiwen. It was a figure with a purple body. It was about the height of two people. It had a purple face and fangs. It looked very ferocious. Yi Shiwen didn't know what race it belonged to. At this time, it looked at Yi Shiwen with a bit of panic and anger. Who do you think you are? It seems that you're the one who's trying to establish a connection this time, right? Yi Shiwen sneered and looked directly at the purple man whose entire body was purple. So what? Don't be happy too early. You have offended someone you can't afford to offend. This is just the beginning. Do you know what kind of great person you have offended? The purple figure said with a ferocious face. You are the blood prison. Yi Shiwen felt a strong aura of the blood prison from his body. He must have come from the blood prison. There was no mistake. Yes, I am from the blood prison. Yi Shiwen, you have killed the great Son of God. You will soon suffer retribution, said the purple figure coldly. Retribution? Don't joke around. Yi Shiwen laughed out loud, as if he had heard the most ridiculous thing. Are the subordinates of the Lord of Victorious Sun City all like you? Yi Shiwen saw the most fanatical faith on his face. This was a kind of faith towards God. Yi Shiwen also felt a little strange. It shouldn't be like this. As a powerhouse at the peak of the myth, how could he have such a deep faith towards the so-called God? This was something he couldn't understand. In his opinion, God was just a slightly more powerful life form. He couldn't understand where this kind of worship came from. However, he had already guessed the identity of the person who had come. It should be the Lord of Victorious Sun City. The only son of God who had been killed by him was young Master Yang. You? The purple figure suddenly became furious. He felt that Yi Shiwen was looking down on him. Moreover, he had insulted the god behind him. You will suffer retribution. When my god's attention turns here, it will be the time of your death. If he comes, then let him come. However, I will kill you first. Yi Shiwen was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. Everyone who had come here today had to die. There was no exception. He spread out his big hand. It was like a thick layer of cloud. It grew bigger and bigger, and suddenly pressed down. It felt as if the sky had collapsed. The purple figure suddenly felt that the surrounding space seemed to have solidified. A terrifying force surrounded him. This was a kind of great rule power. It was completely above him. He had only felt this kind of feeling from the Lord of Victoria's Sun City. Could this person be comparable to the Lord of Victoria's Sun City? No, impossible. My God can't be forced by a mortal. No matter what he thought, this terrifying force didn't let him go. It directly grabbed him. Bang! He screamed and was sent flying. His whole body was like a stream of light. He flew thousands of miles away like a cannonball. In the face of this terrifying power, the strength that he was so proud of was nothing at all. On the contrary, it was completely restrained by Yi Shiwen, and he was easily hit by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen didn't think much. He slapped him again and solved the problem. A roar! The purple figure let out a huge roar. His body completely erupted with a kind of majestic power. It was like the resurrection of a god. At the critical moment, he blocked Yi Shiwen's slap. Although his whole body was still blasted away, he managed to avoid a fatal blow. He barely supported his body in midair. His whole body was filled with a majestic power. It was constantly repairing his body that had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen. One by one, talismans and great Tao lines appeared on his body. It made his strength rise continuously. It actually surpassed the peak of the mythical realm. For a moment, he actually had the strength to fight with the masters of Tao confirmation. Yi Shiwen opened the eye of redemption and saw everything clearly. Everything was under his control. There was a talisman in the purple figure's body. This talisman was constantly surging with powerful power. It made his strength comparable to the masters of Tao confirmation level. He immediately deduced that it should be a kind of talisman given by the Lord of Victoria's Sun City. However, this kind of talisman was not easy to make. It could only be made by instilling all the martial power in one's body. Yi Shiwen had nothing to worry about at all. If one were to say that he, who had earned his rank, represented a half-baked person, then this was a half-baked person among half-baked people. He was not even as good as him. This is a bit interesting. Just in time, let me take a good look at the extent of the power of the Shenyang City Lord. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. He wasn't the slightest bit afraid. On the contrary, his fighting spirit was surging. He had entered the fighting strength of Tao confirmation level. An ordinary peak of the mythical realm could be killed with one slap. This purple figure was slightly more resistant to beatings. It would only take 2 slaps. It was nothing at all. There was no real opponent who could fight with him. This is a little interesting. Roar! How dare you blaspheme my god? Die! I'll let you see the power of my god. The purple figure roared and instantly blasted towards Yi Shiwen. His whole figure was like a cannonball. He turned into a ball of light and pulled out a series of afterimages in midair. Before anyone could react, he had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. Before everyone's eyes could react, he had already punched Yi Shiwen's face. You're still far from it. Is this all you've got? Too slow. In the nick of time, Yi Shiwen raised his hand and blocked the punch. The terrifying collision turned into a boundless shockwave that spread out in all directions. The purple figure retreated again and again to resolve the shockwave that rushed to his body. In front of him, Yi Shiwen did not move at all. He did not have the slightest intention of moving. The talisman given by the Lord of Victoria's Sun City is only this level? Then I'm really disappointed. Yi Shiwen sneered. He did not take him seriously at all. Blaspheme my god. You will regret it. The purple figure roared. His whole body was burning as if it was on fire. He was burning his own life to mobilize the most powerful power. Chapter 22:17. He had ignited his own life force. His entire person was like a man on fire. However, his aura was also becoming stronger and more terrifying. Circles of terrifying aura spread out in all directions. Within a radius of 100 miles, those who couldn't dodge in time were directly sent flying. Some of the weaker ones were directly crushed to death. This level had already involved the level of Tao confirmation. It was not a forbidden area that they could interfere with. Just the aura that filled the sky was enough to collapse the space. This was a forceful increase in power to this level. It was different from Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's realm comprehension had also reached the same level, but his realm had not reached it yet. Boom! Suddenly, the space in front of Yi Shiwen shattered. He didn't know when, but the purple man had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. He blasted out a punch, and the space shattering was the monstrous fist power that was blasted out by his punch. You only have the power, but you don't know how to use it. Yi Shiwen sneered. He couldn't help but sneer. That talisman in your body is really wasted. Grab it for me? Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. This talisman contained the terrifying power of the gods. It was impossible for ordinary people to absorb it. However, he was different. Once he absorbed the energy in this talisman, his realm could almost be said to be able to rush to the peak of the 8th level of Paong realm in a single breath. He stretched out his big hand and directly grabbed the purple man's chest. The divine claw of judgment directly broke the purple man's attack on the spot. As Yi Shiwen said, he was just a brute who could only use brute force. Moreover, even that brute force couldn't compare to Yi Shiwen's level at all. The purple man was shocked and angry. He constantly roared and directly blasted out a few punches to avoid Yi Shiwen's claw. The terror of Yi Shiwen had completely exceeded his initial expectations. He thought that with the talisman bestowed by the Lord of Victoria's Sun City, his strength would certainly advance by leaps and bounds. Even if he encountered a master of Tao confirming level, he would still have the power to fight back. Who knew that Yi Shiwen's progress had actually advanced to such an extent? He didn't give anyone a way out. He was clearly on the right path. Although he didn't know how terrifying a real Tao confirming expert was, he couldn't suppress Yi Shiwen even with the power of the talisman. So, he could imagine that Yi Shiwen had probably already reached Tao confirming. No one had mentioned this news before. No, he had to hurry back and report to his lord. Otherwise, he might really suffer some losses because he was caught unprepared. Thinking of this, he almost turned around and was about to escape. In his eyes, the allied forces of the Xian world were simply ants. There was no need for him to consider them. You want to leave? Yi Shiwen moved all of a sudden. The surrounding principles transformed into a monstrous hand under his control. Then it grabbed out a huge seal. It was the overturning the sky seal. Then it suddenly pressed down towards the purple man. Bang! The purple man was directly bombarded, and a huge mushroom cloud slowly rose. The terrifying power obliterated the atoms. The purple man fell on the spot like a meteorite and slammed into the ground. Rumble! The entire world was roaring, and the earth was trembling. The powerful force of the impact caused the clouds in the sky to be completely swept away. The purple-robed man kept screaming like an enraged beast. But no matter how he struggled, it was useless. All the bones in his body had been smashed by Yi Shiwen and couldn't be restored at all. Moreover, there were faint chains of the law on his body, locking him on the ground and sealing the power of his whole body, making him unable to move. There was incomparable horror in his eyes. Yi Shiwen was 1,000 times, 10,000 times more terrifying than he had imagined. Previously, he only suspected that Yi Shiwen might have already reached Tao validation. Now, he was completely sure that Yi Shiwen might have really reached Tao validation. Otherwise, how could he have such terrifying strength? Only a Tao validation expert could slap him like this with just one slap. There was no other possibility besides a Tao validation expert. At this moment, it wasn't just the purple man who was stunned. Even the two parties from the profound world were completely dumbfounded. They had all witnessed how terrifying and ferocious the purple man was. Just his aura and aftershock could injure people. This level of power was far beyond their imagination. But in front of Yi Shiwen, he was like a child, easily beaten to the ground. Is this Yi Shiwen a monster? On the other hand, the human clan was completely surprised and happy. They didn't expect Yi Shiwen to be so tyrannical. But the more tyrannical Yi Shiwen was, the better it was for them, and they might even be able to fight back. Everyone held their breath and focused on this side of the battlefield. They also understood that no matter how they fought, it was useless. The real victory or defeat still depended on the outcome between Yi Shiwen and the Purple Man. No matter which one of them, they could seriously injure them, and it would be an easy one. But now it seemed that Yi Shiwen had completely gained the upper hand. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and came in front of the Purple Man. He stretched out his hand and directly grabbed the Purple Man's chest. Poochie! His hand directly grabbed the Purple Man's chest, and he forcibly pulled out a talisman from his chest. Ah! The Purple Man screamed and died. Without this talisman to support his body, he finally couldn't hold on anymore and directly died. And Yi Shiwen's all-out attack was not that easy to bear. Without this talisman, he was nothing at all. As soon as the talisman was pulled out, it suddenly burst into endless light. The powerful force shook the sky, and circles of unimaginable power swept out, wanting to fly into the sky. However, in that instant, Yi Shiwen caught it and swallowed it in one gulp. Boom! The power of this talisman directly exploded in Yi Shiwen's body, as if it wanted to explode a way out. But how could it be so easy? It was suppressed by Yi Shiwen on the spot, and he began to refine the energy in it. There was no way to completely refine it for a while, but it would not be long. By then, he would have the powerful strength of the peak of Paong Realm 8th level, and it was unknown how much stronger he was now. His gaze swept over, and at this time, the tens of millions of coalition forces were a little dumbfounded to see Yi Shiwen win so easily. Yi Shiwen just glanced at them indifferently, and then said to the more than 100 subordinates that he brought, "Kill them all." "Yes," his subordinates said excitedly. The combat power that Yi Shiwen showed just now was really too inspiring. Perhaps he really had the strength of the Tao confirmation level. Because of the threat from the city lord of Xinjiang City, they were also very worried that it would attract the city lord's revenge. In any case, although they came out with Yi Shiwen, in fact, they were still the people of Flying Cloud Castle and Sky Bearing Castle. How could they not be worried? Now that Yi Shiwen's performance was so strong, and even in the face of a master comparable to the Tao confirmation level, he swept away in an instant. With such strength, they had nothing to worry about. As for these people in the Xian world, they were not in the scope of their consideration at all. Suddenly, the tens of millions of coalition forces reacted at once, and they were a little dumbfounded. They actually lost. From the beginning, they had the upper hand. Now, although they had not completely lost, the Purple Man had died in Yi Shiwen's hands. No one could provide them with protection, so it was almost a loss. On the contrary, on the side of the human clan, their faces were full of joy. They did not expect that this time, not only would they be able to survive the disaster, but more importantly, they would be able to capture all the invaders who invaded their homeland. Wait a minute, Yi Shiwen, do you want to be the enemy of all the Xian world? At this time, the city lord of Heavenly Cloud City stood up. All the major forces in the Xian world that could be named were gathered here. It was not a lie to say that they could represent the Xian world, especially the city lord of Heavenly Cloud City, who was a veteran expert at the peak of the myth realm. So what if I am the enemy? Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with incomparable killing intent. Do you think I am afraid of being your enemy? It's ridiculous. Haven't you seen clearly the gap between us? Yi Shiwen's words suddenly made everyone's face turn pale. They did not doubt that Yi Shiwen had the ability to kill the tens of millions of coalition forces. In front of such a level of expert, the number was no longer a matter of specifics. Indeed, the gap between them and Yi Shiwen was too big. In front of such a freak who was suspected to have confirmed his Tao, their resistance was nothing at all. Yi Shiwen, we did not come willingly this time. In fact, we were also threatened by that guy. Otherwise, it would be impossible for us to come and help the tyrant, said the city lord of Heavenly Cloud City quickly, for fear that Yi Shiwen would start a massacre if he made a mistake. As long as you let us go, we are willing to follow the lead of the human clan in the future. People under the eaves had to bow their heads. No matter how aggrieved they were at this time, they did not dare to say anything. The person in front of them was too terrifying, and he had the ability to destroy them. At this time, the human clan, who was originally defending passively, had already opened up their formations. The Tau soldiers rushed out and had already surrounded the tens of millions of coalition forces, leaving them with nowhere to escape. A scheming look flashed in Yi Shiwen's eyes. If the human clan could become the leader of the Xian world, there would be too many benefits. As for whether they were convinced or not, it was not a problem that he needed to care about. If they were not convinced, he would just kill them. Since that's the case, I have no choice but to give you some face. How about this? Apart from the Heaven Wasteland Hall and the Divine Union, I can let everyone else off. However, the condition is that you have to exchange the heads of the Heaven Wasteland Hall and the Divine Union. The next 2 chapters will be very late. Based on my current extremely terrible state, the next 2 chapters will be very slow, and I will need to slowly think about how to write them. You don't have to wait for me tonight. You can read it tomorrow morning. Chapter 22:18. Since that's the case, I have no choice but to give you face. How about this? Apart from the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union, I can let everyone else go. However, the condition is that you must exchange it with the heads of the Heaven Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union. Yi Shiwen slowly stated his conditions. These people were no match for him at all. Killing 10 million of them would not be a problem. But could he kill everyone in the mysterious world? That wasn't realistic. Yi Shiwen hadn't lost his mind to such an extent. If he really did that, then the wrath of the heavens could kill him. The stronger one's cultivation, the more one could sense the existence of the so-called heavenly Tao. Although it was not a subjective consciousness, it was a collection of countless laws. Any life that wanted to destroy these laws would attract the heavenly Tao's attack. For example, the heavenly Tao of a small world might not be able to do anything to him if he slaughtered an entire world. However, if he did such a thing in the mysterious world, he would immediately suffer retribution. Unless he killed everyone in the mysterious world, the human race would still have to interact with the major forces. Although he did not care what they thought, he could not stay in the mysterious world forever. Now, he finally understood why those legendary existences in the mysterious world would leave. It was because this place was no longer suitable for them to improve further. The mysterious world was not even as good as the ancient desolate world. However, it was said that there was a chance to prove one's Tao, so it attracted a large number of mysterious realm experts and slowly became more tyrannical than other worlds. This was not all. Apart from the deity transformation abyss, there were not even hundreds of mysterious realm experts in the worlds that Yi Shiwen had been to. However, compared to the deity transformation abyss, the mysterious world was just a more advanced world. He had to find a more suitable world and a more suitable stage for him. Before leaving, he had to deal with the problem of the human race. Yi Shiwen's words immediately caused an uproar among the allied forces. No one had expected Yi Shiwen to be so ruthless. Although the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace accounted for more than half of the allied forces, they did not have an advantage in terms of top-notch experts, especially when it came to mythological experts. No matter what, they would not be able to contend against the entire mysterious world. They were not as powerful as Yi Shiwen. Originally, they had joined forces with the major forces of the mysterious world to annihilate the human race. Naturally, they would get twice the result with half the effort, but now they had shot themselves in the foot. What? You don't want to? Then, all of you will die. Yi Shiwen indifferently said. His voice was not loud, but it reached everyone's heart. Everyone's complexion suddenly changed. They didn't doubt that Yi Shiwen was capable of doing it. The Divine Alliance and the Heaven Wasteland Palace colluded with foreign enemies to deal with the forces of the Xian world. They deserve to be executed. The Heavenly Cloud City Lord's expression changed. With a loud roar, he immediately led the experts of Heavenly Cloud City to launch a surprise attack on the experts of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Hall. Under his leadership, all the major forces came to their senses. If the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Hall didn't die, then they would. They had no choice but to fight to the death. It was impossible for the experts of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace to wait helplessly for death. They had to fight back. For a moment, the entire world was in a mess. On the contrary, the human race experts were a little dumbfounded. They did not expect that they would not even need to do anything in the end. Yi Shiwen had only said a few words to force them into a state of killing each other. What was domineering? This was it. This time, the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace are finished. Bai Jianxing said in a daze. Everything happened too quickly, and he didn't have time to think. He was even prepared to fight to the death. However, the development of the situation was far beyond his imagination. It was not that he didn't understand, but the world was too fast. How could he not understand that from today onwards, the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace would be removed from the Xian world? There was no need for the human race or Yi Shiwen to continue to take action. The entire Xian world would not tolerate them. After killing most of the elites of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace, would the various major forces of the Xian world allow the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace to have a chance to rise again in the future? That was absolutely impossible. Therefore, in order to prevent any accidents, it was necessary to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. If it was him, he would definitely do the same. What a ruthless method. What a vicious scheme. Bai Jianxing looked at Yi Shiwen. In just a few words, Yi Shiwen had completely destroyed the two colossi that had been standing in the Xian world for countless years. From now on, even if there were some fish that had escaped the net, they would be living in fear like stray dogs. This was everything that powerful strength could bring. Compared to such powerful strength, any other forces were just fleeting clouds. Only one's own strength was fundamental and everything. The entire battlefield was turned upside down. Tens of millions of people who were fighting side by side a second ago had now fallen into a state of mutual killing. Blood flowed like a river. Hundreds and thousands of experts died every moment. Blood splashed and formed a river. The resentment of these experts was enough to turn the ancestral land of the human race into a land of death. One day in the future, it would be transformed into an Azura hell. However, Yi Shiwen naturally wouldn't let such a situation happen. Whatever resentment, whatever remnant souls, all of them were collected and added to his Ghost Heart Fire Great Array. His Ghost Heart Fire Great Array was also undergoing a transformation. His eyes searched the entire battlefield. Once he found someone escaping, he would kill him on the spot. No one could escape from his hands. His heart was as hard as iron and stone. He wouldn't be moved by any screams. He wanted to lay an impregnable foundation for the human race before he left. It was far from enough to force them to surrender verbally. Only by binding all of them to the war chariot of the human race could it be considered complete. Although the Lord of Victoria's Sun City was terrifying, Yi Shiwen wasn't someone to be trifled with. Yi Shiwen's eyes continued to search. He directly opened the eyes of redemption. Wherever he passed, he could see clearly even the layers of space. In the past, he could only perceive some abnormalities in the nearby subspace. With the eyes of redemption, he could see everything clearly. It was indeed a remarkable magical ability. He was searching for the whereabouts of the Divine Union leader. This time, he only found the Lord of Wasteland Palace, but not the whereabouts of the Divine Union leader. This made him a little disappointed. How could he feel at ease when such an opponent who could enter the Tao validation at any time was eyeing him covetously? He wasn't afraid. However, if the Divine Union leader, who had achieved the Tao validation, came back, today's situation would reappear on the human race. He couldn't let go of this hidden danger. However, he couldn't find the whereabouts of the Divine Union leader after patrolling the battlefield. He couldn't help but be a little disappointed. It seemed that the Divine Union leader wasn't here this time. He was lucky enough to escape. However, this couldn't be helped. This battle lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. Under the circumstances that Yi Shiwen and his hundreds of subordinates didn't intervene, the battle lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. Blood flowed like a river, and the corpses had already densely covered the ancestral land of the human race. Several formations were operating all the time. allowing these blood essences to integrate into the earth. After Yi Shiwen took away all the hostility, this place would become a cultivation holy land. A cultivation holy land watered with blood. Finally, when the last expert of the Divine Union and the Wasteland Palace was beheaded, the Allied forces, which originally had millions of people, were now only left with hundreds of thousands. This was because they had the advantage of experts. Otherwise, they would have been completely annihilated in the hands of the experts of the Divine Union and the Wasteland Palace. The remaining experts of the Allied forces were all murderous, like Azuras who had crawled out of bloody hell. However, they were still full of fear when they saw Yi Shiwen. All of this Azura battlefield, was created by the person in front of them, and they had no way of resisting. This was the difference between experts who had achieved the Tao validation and those who had not. He alone was enough to deter tens of millions of experts and beat them to the point where they couldn't fight back. I hope you all remember your vows and follow the lead of the human race in the future. The city lord of Xinjiang City is not to be trifled with, but I, Yi Shiwen, am not a good-tempered person either. Yi Shiwen's gaze swept over. The scene was silent, and everyone held their breath, not daring to speak. All right, you guys go. I don't need to remind you what to do next, right? If the remnants of the Wasteland Palace and the Divine Union escape, I don't think you guys will have an easy time. You don't want to see them make a comeback, right? Go. Yi Shiwen waved his hand, and the remaining hundreds of thousands of experts were immediately pardoned. One after another, they scattered like birds and beasts. They were not willing to stay any longer, not even for a second. Seeing the remaining Allied forces flee, the human race finally heaved a sigh of relief and cheered. For them, things like being the leader of the Xian world were too distant. Escaping this calamity was the most important thing. Yi Shiwen flew down to Bai Jianxing's side. Yi Shiwen flew down and landed beside Bai Jianxing. Seeing his excited expression, he knew what Bai Jianxing wanted to say and said, "The most important thing now is the reconstruction of the ancestral land. As for the Divine Union and the desolate Heaven Temple, there will naturally be people who will help us clean them up. However, it's a pity that the leader of the Divine Union escaped. This is a very big hidden danger and loophole. I will leave a jade slip. If he appears, inform me immediately, and I will come back to deal with it." He handed a jade slip to Bai Jianxing, which contained a wisp of his spirit. As long as he crushed it, he would be able to sense it immediately and rush back immediately. However, for the time being, the leader of the Divine Union should not have the guts to appear unless he was planning to throw away his life. At this moment, the aftermath of this battle had just begun to spread. Countless rumors spread throughout the Xian world following the end of this battle. The Xian world was completely shocked by this battle. Chapter 2219. It should be said that the entire world was completely shocked by this battle. No one had expected that the battle would turn out this way. In everyone's opinion, this battle was absolutely one-sided, and there was no other possibility. Tens of millions of elites from the allied forces of the mysterious world were enough to sweep everything away. No one had ever heard of any force that could resist such a combat power. However, the final outcome was shocking. Not only was the allied forces defeated, but only a few 100,000 of them managed to escape, while the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Temple were completely annihilated. This outcome left countless people completely dumbfounded. No one had ever imagined that it would turn into a massacre within the allied forces. In the end, they didn't die at the hands of humans, but at the hands of each other. All of this was because of a single sentence from Yi Shiwen. If he wanted them to commit suicide, they had to commit suicide. Such a terrifying existence instantly made Yi Shiwen's danger level rise by many levels. It was rumored that Yi Shiwen had already proven his Tao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so terrifying. Moreover, he had brought back hundreds of high-level and even pinnacle mythical existences. Just these mythical experts alone were enough to suppress all opposition. This must be fake. How is this possible? I don't believe it. I absolutely don't believe it. Tens of millions of people can't beat Yi Shiwen? Is he a monster? Has he already proven his Tao? Unless he's a Tao validation expert, even a pinnacle mythical expert would die if they were piled up by tens of millions of people. According to the news from the front lines, Yi Shiwen has definitely entered the state of Tao validation. Otherwise, it would be impossible for so many people to listen to his orders. There are many pinnacle mythical experts among them. All sorts of rumors were circulating. No one knew what level Yi Shiwen had reached. They only knew that his skills had reached an unbelievable level. The Heaven Wasteland Temple Master, who was a pinnacle mythical expert, had been seriously injured by him with a single slap. He wasn't a match for Yi Shiwen at all. But no matter what everyone thought, the situation of the entire Xian world had been completely rewritten because of Yi Shiwen's return. The human race, which was originally in a completely weak position and could barely be regarded as a first-class force, had leapt to become the leader of the entire Xian world. Although the foundation of the human race was still insufficient, and the legend experts of their race were still far from being strong enough to support the position of the current leader of the entire profound world, it didn't matter at all because with Yi Shiwen's existence, they wouldn't dare to disobey. At Yi Shiwen's level, numbers and whatnot were no longer a threat to him. Once he was enraged, the heavens and earth would be turned upside down. Killing intent would rise from the ground, and it wasn't something an ordinary person could imagine. He alone was comparable to 100,000 years, or even 1,000,000 years of foundation. There was nothing more terrifying than a Tao confirming expert. Moreover, in everyone's opinion, since Yi Shiwen had already proven his Tao, he wouldn't die in the foreseeable future. Unless he encountered some unforeseen event, he could still protect the human race for a very long time. Under such circumstances, even if they were 1,000 or 10,000 unwilling, they still had to agree. Because in this world, there was no room for them to speak. Moreover, this was likely to be another Tao confirming expert that had appeared in the profound world for countless years. The last time a Tao confirming expert appeared was a very long time ago. It was so long that no one could say for sure except for some big forces that had a long history. Moreover, the grand occasion at that time couldn't be seen even if there were records in the ancient books. Now it was different. Yi Shiwen might be the current god of the world, invincible. It was just that some people felt strange. This was a bit different from the historical records of Tao confirming experts. It could be said that the existence of Tao confirming experts in the historical records could be said to have filled the entire world with brilliance, and there weren't many anomalies to assist them. What was going on? But they couldn't tell why. After all, they weren't Tao confirming experts. They couldn't know what kind of situation the real Tao confirming expert was. They couldn't even guess that level of expert. However, it was also a publicly acknowledged fact that Yi Shiwen possessed strength that surpassed the demigod. In their opinion, only Tao confirming experts could surpass the demigod. They had never thought of such a special situation with Yi Shiwen. In other words, they couldn't even imagine that it could be like this. In the face of a god, whether they were willing or not, they had to come and worship. This was a pilgrimage, a form of respect for a Tao confirming expert. Once a Tao confirming expert was an existence of a completely different level of life. It was like the difference between humans and ants on the street. They weren't on the same level at all. Yi Shiwen accepted their worship in the ancestral land of the human clan. Although he hadn't reached Tao confirming, his combat power had truly entered the Tao confirming level, and he indeed had the qualifications to do so. He knew very well that some of these people had come to worship him with sincerity. However, some of them had come to probe the real situation. They would always be suspicious unless Yi Shiwen proved his Tao in front of them. However, it didn't matter. Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength was enough to suppress them. Especially those experts at the peak of the myth realm. They were the most unwilling, but after feeling Yi Shiwen's peerless and terrifying aura, they had no choice but to lower their arrogant heads. Yi Shiwen's aura was powerful, and his combat power was even more terrifying. In any case, he was not someone they could look up to. After many experts had paid their respects to Yi Shiwen, even the most unfavorable rumors about Yi Shiwen had vanished into thin air. These experts had unanimously stated that Yi Shiwen was indeed a Tao confirming expert. He was a present-age god. Some people who were peeking at Yi Shiwen no longer dared to have any other thoughts. Everyone recognized Yi Xuan more and more. He was a god of the present age. For more than a month, the representatives and leaders of the major forces had come to pay homage to Yi Xuan. During this time, many old monsters who were thought to have passed away had come into being one after another. In the eyes of these people, Yi Xuan was the only expert who had proved his Tao in these years. He was also their hope to prove their Tao. They all hoped to know the mystery of Tao confirming from Yi Xuan. Although Yi Xuan hadn't reached Tao confirming, he also knew some things about Tao confirming. However, why did he tell them? So, they sent them away one by one. Even if they were unwilling, they couldn't do anything. Yi Xuan wasn't the same as before, and he wasn't someone they could bully. However, these old monsters had come to pay homage to Yi Xuan one after another. This had made Yi Xuan's prestige rise to an unimaginable level. During this month, Yi Xuan consolidated his cultivation while deploying troops to search for the whereabouts of the Divine Union's leader. However, after more than a month of searching, even though he had gathered all the forces in the Xian world, he still couldn't find any clues about the Divine Union's leader. It was as if he had completely evaporated. Yi Xuan couldn't do anything about it, as this world was too big. If the Divine Union's leader hid in another world, he wouldn't be able to do anything about it. During this month, he was just doing his best. In addition, he had thoroughly consolidated the foundation of the human tribe. In one go, he had promoted over 100 myth realm experts, all of whom had broken through by force. These people's future achievements were limited, and their chances of reaching Tao confirming had basically been cut off. However, they were still very grateful. If it hadn't been for Yi Xuan, they might not have been able to break through to the myth realm in their lifetime. One could tell just by looking at the number of myth realm experts in the human tribe. Yi Xuan heaved a sigh of relief when he suddenly had over 100 myth realm experts. Then, he left behind some of his new insights and knowledge. For a big power, this was the most important thing. Inheritance wasn't just resources. As long as the inheritance he had left behind still existed, the human tribe would be able to produce a steady stream of geniuses and myth realm experts. The human tribe of the Xian world was far inferior to the legendary human tribe of the Heaven realm. It wasn't that they were inferior, but that they didn't have any inheritance. According to the legends, there were over 100 immortal inheritances in the Heaven realm, but there wasn't a single one in the Xian world. Even if he could one day reach Tao confirming and create an immortal inheritance, he simply couldn't compare to the human tribe of the Heaven realm. The Heaven realm was the base camp of the human tribe, the place where countless elites of the human tribe yearned to go. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no time, Yi Xuan would have gone to the Heaven realm. Furthermore, he had a vague feeling that the Heaven realm might be related to the Earth of his previous life. Regardless of whether it was a myth or an inheritance, there had to be some connection. However, he really couldn't find the time. However, he must go to the Heaven realm in the future. This feeling was getting stronger and stronger. He felt that this time was not far away. In the past month or so, his biggest gain was not just these. It was a strange power that came from an unknown space and drilled into his body. It was trying to improve his body and make it move towards a more perfect direction. In this power, he could feel the thoughts of countless living beings. They were all living beings in the Xian world. He immediately understood that this should be the legendary power of faith. The people in the Xian world all thought that he had reached Tao, confirming, and worshipped him like a god. The power of faith formed was vast and mighty, turning into a surging energy that rushed towards him. His body was almost about to explode. It allowed him to instantly break into the Paoang realm 9th layer. His cultivation improved a step further. His thoughts were clear, and he could say anything he wanted. He could understand everything he thought of. He didn't even need to use the mysterious space, but it already made him feel like he was advancing by leaps and bounds. It was extremely enjoyable. Chapter 22:20. This feeling of advancing by leaps and bounds made him feel as if he was completely immersed in it. He had a feeling that if he continued like this, it wouldn't take long for him to prove his Tao. By that time, he would be able to go anywhere in the world. He was almost lost in this feeling. However, he still reacted quickly. After he truly reacted, he felt as if he was drenched in cold sweat. The power of faith was very good. It could send people to unparalleled heights in a short period of time. However, his foundation was also very unstable. Everything depended on the source of faith. This was the so-called grazing of God's people like sheep in order to obtain faith. However, if all the source of faith disappeared, then the so-called God would also rapidly weaken. This was also the reason why the so-called God fell into a deep sleep. Unless there was another source of faith, otherwise, there would be no hope of reigniting the divine flame and resurrecting. They could only fall into an endless deep sleep. Finally, they would exhaust their divine power and die for real. Although the power of faith could prove one's Tao quickly, it relied on external forces to prove one's Tao. After all, external forces were unreliable. The only one who could be relied on was oneself. He suddenly recalled that this was what Emo had said, proving one's Tao with external force and proving one's Tao with one's own strength. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Proving one's Tao with external force was easy, but it wasn't stable. Most of the fallen gods had proven their Tao with external force, and those who proved their Tao with their own strength were stronger and could walk further. He couldn't help but feel a little scared. He had almost chosen such a shortcut because he was lost for a moment. Even if he really relied on this to prove his Tao, he felt that he might die because of it one day in the future. After he came to his senses in time, he immediately stopped using the power of faith. Although he wanted to prove his Tao, he had to rely on his own strength. Otherwise, it would be equivalent to putting his life in the hands of others. This was like the temptation of the devil. It was difficult for people to refuse. Of course, this was only true for a person with great ambitions like Yishuan. For other people, it was something that they could only wish for even if they relied on external forces to prove their Tao. After all, the word Tao had dragged down the lives of too many people. However, the enormous energy contained in the power of faith still made him very excited. It was too enormous. Although each person might only have a little bit of it, the combined power was incomparably enormous. Even with his current cultivation base, he could still feel the weight of the power of faith. However, this power of faith wasn't pure. Some of it was stronger, while some of it was weaker. Moreover, many of them were attached with strong spiritual thoughts. Yi Shiwen could faintly perceive that there were many desires in them. He couldn't truly understand them yet. Perhaps this was related to the fact that he hadn't truly confirmed his Tao. But as the saying goes, even if you haven't eaten pork, you've seen a pig run. He roughly understood that this was probably the so-called wish of believers. Many people prayed to the gods and worshipped Buddha in hopes that their wishes would come true. However, if their wishes could not be achieved, this kind of belief would gradually fade away. This was the so-called shallow believer. There were too many things involved in this. He could only judge based on his many years of experience. After all, he hadn't become a god. There were many key points that he hadn't figured out until now. He could only judge by himself. After judging this, he couldn't help but sigh. If he relied on this power of faith to become a god, then there would be a lot of trouble in the future. He didn't know how much time would be wasted just to deal with the wishes of these believers every day. Moreover, there was no limit to his own strength. There was indeed a limit to the number of believers, which directly limited his own progress. Thinking of all kinds of restrictions in the future, this little benefit now was nothing. However, the energy in this power of faith still made him excited. If he could absorb it, then his future progress would definitely not be slow. However, he would have to see Emo again in the future. He would ask him if there was any way to solve the distracting thoughts mixed in this power of faith. Although he didn't have a way and couldn't do anything about it, but the Devil King might have a way. Therefore, he could only gather this power of faith and seal it in Tianyuan Mirror. He had to say that Tianyuan Mirror was really magical. He had countless divine tools, dozens of pseudo-divine tools, and several divine tools. However, none of them could seal and collect the power of faith. Only Tianyuan Mirror could do it. Yishuan firmly believed that Yi Mo would never die in the hands of the Abyss Devil Lord. Absolutely not. He hadn't seen Yi Shiwen prove his Tao. He hadn't seen Yi Shiwen achieve Tao. How could he die like this? It was absolutely impossible. Yi Shiwen clenched his fists. His eyes were slightly moist. Yi Shiwen stood up. More than half of the 3 months had passed. It was time to return to the ancient barrens. Abyss Devil Lord, your time of death has come. Originally, he was particularly afraid that the Abyss Devil Lord had already proven his Tao. It would be a disaster for him. However, he didn't have to worry about anything now. What was more important than having tyrannical strength? No matter what happened, he had absolute confidence to deal with it. In addition, during this period of time, although he withdrew in time, the power of faith that surged in previously was converted into his cultivation. He had truly stepped into the peak of the 8th level of the Paong realm, and was almost able to break into the 9th level of the Paong realm. Fortunately, he didn't absorb much power of faith. It wouldn't affect his foundation. Otherwise, if all his foundation was transformed into power of faith, it would be like taking drugs. He would never be able to get rid of it. He called Bai Jianxing over. At this time, when he saw Yi Shiwen again, even Bai Jianxing, an old friend of Yi Shiwen, couldn't help but be a little reserved. Now, Yi Shiwen's prestige in the hearts of the human race in the Xian world was no less than in the ancient barrens. It was even higher because they thought that Yi Shiwen had already become a god. After so many years, the human race once again had a person who had proven his Tao and become a god. Moreover, he often missed his mother's race. He wasn't like some people who left directly after proving their Tao. There might still be some people in the Xian world who were dissatisfied, but among the human race, they were Yi Shiwen's hardcore supporters. His strongest believers were almost all in the human race. Although Bai Jianxing was open-minded, the gap between them was too big. He had only just stepped into the 5th level of Paong realm after receiving Yi Shiwen's guidance. They weren't on the same level at all. If Yi Shiwen hadn't promoted hundreds of mythical experts, he wouldn't have been able to control the entire Xian world by himself. Although they didn't dare to do anything because of Yi Shiwen's existence, Yi Shiwen would eventually leave. When that time came, what could Bai Jianxing do if they tried to do something? Yi Shiwen sighed and didn't say anything. He was already used to it, and it wasn't the first time this had happened. I have to rush back to the ancient wilderness immediately. I still have things to handle after that, so I might not be back. I will leave half of the people I brought with me with you. If you need anything, you can contact me through them. With them around, unless the Divine Union leader proves his Tao, he won't be able to do anything even if he returns, said Yi Shiwen. The mythical experts that Yi Shiwen had brought might seem like obedient grandsons in front of Yi Shiwen, but in reality, which one of them wasn't an all-powerful figure in the past? Furthermore, there were a few peak mythical experts among them. Even if the Divine Union leader returned, he wouldn't be able to do anything. That's great, Bai Jianxing said excitedly. With these people that Yi Shiwen had brought with him, the unconvinced forces in the Xian world wouldn't be able to make any waves. They would be able to suppress them with a flip of their hand, and the human race would become the top force in one leap. They wouldn't need to rely on Yi Shiwen, so they would have time to slowly develop their reputation and develop a strong foundation. Choose a hidden place. I will set up a transmission array there. If necessary, I will be able to rush back in time, said Yi Shiwen. Also, the people I left here will be rotated every once in a while. However, remember not to let outsiders know about this. The rotation time is of the utmost importance. Understand? Don't worry, I understand, Bai Jianxing said excitedly. With such a transmission array, their safety factor would undoubtedly increase by a few levels. Even if the Divine Union leader returned, it would be useless. Of course, Yi Shiwen wanted to set up a transmission array to return from the Divine Transformation Abyss. The cost of such a long distance was naturally shocking. However, in his opinion, it was all worth it. When the time came, he also planned to set up a transmission array in the ancient wilderness and the true martial domain so that he could travel back and forth at any time. This was something he had learned after going to the blood prison. There were very few experts in the blood prison who were truly independent cultivators. Most of them were existences who could summon the wind and summon the rain in their respective worlds. They also had their own forces to look after. Of course, they didn't have the ability to set up a huge transmission array like Yi Shiwen at all costs. Their transmission array still had to go through many turns before reaching its destination. Although it was a little troublesome, the cost was also small. Furthermore, it was much better than flying back slowly. After setting up the transmission array and leaving half of the people behind, Yi Shiwen didn't stay any longer. He immediately left the Xian world. Without the terrifying coercion that Yi Shiwen had deliberately created to cover more than half of the Xian world, the major forces heaved a sigh of relief. However, before they could catch their breaths, they discovered that although Yi Shiwen had left, he had left behind more than half of the experts. There were more than 50 high-level mythical experts. In addition to the hundreds of mythical experts that Yi Shiwen had promoted, the high-end combat power of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace was probably only this much. These experts didn't stay idle either. They immediately participated in the pursuit of the experts of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace. They went deep into the worlds and uprooted the strongholds of the Divine Union and the Heaven Wasteland Palace all over the world. They were invincible like a thunderbolt, allowing everyone to truly witness their terrifying combat power. Even though Yi Shiwen had left, the human race wasn't someone that could be bullied. Chapter 22-21. Originally, although some people were afraid of Yi Shiwen, they did not take it to heart. After all, Yi Shiwen could not stay for long. In the history of the profound world, there were many who had reached the Tao realm, but no one chose to stay in the end. The profound world was just a stop, not the end. At that time, the human race would still be beaten back to its original state. However, these people that Yi Shiwen left behind had completely announced the rise of the human race. Compared to Yi Shiwen's deterrent force, which was almost equivalent to the deterrent force of nuclear weapons, these legendary experts were the real deterrent force of conventional weapons. Seeing this scene, many people who still had ideas had no choice but to give up. With such a peerless genius, the human race in the profound world should be on the rise. Slowly, the major forces of the profound world seemed to have accepted the fact that the human race was on the rise. They had no choice but to accept the fact that they had to follow the lead of the human race. Not to mention Yi Shiwen, just the myth realm experts were enough for the human race to look down on the world. Yi Shiwen, on the other hand, traveled day and night to the ancient desolation. Compared to rushing from the deity transformation abyss to the profound world, the distance from the profound world to the ancient desolation was much shorter. With Yi Shiwen's current strength and speed, he arrived at the ancient desolation from the profound world in less than half a day. Compared to the Xian world, the ancient desolation wasn't any worse. In fact, it was even better than the Xian world. At its peak, the ancient desolation stood above the myriad heavens and realms. However, the number of experts in the ancient desolation was far less than that of the Xian world. This puzzled Fei Yunluan and the others. Yi Shiwen did not know how to explain it. He could only say that everything was for the sake of Tao realm. For the sake of Tao realm, everyone gathered in the profound world, making the ancient desolation even more desolate. But now, this was no longer a problem. Like the human race in the profound world, the human race of the ancient desolation also lacked sufficient heritage and a path to improve in the future. As long as he copied the many classics and insights left behind for the human race in the profound world, he would be able to rise again very soon. The situation in the ancient desolate era didn't seem to have changed much compared to before. After the demon race demonized a small part of the ancient desolate era, they didn't take any further actions. Especially 7 years ago, when the righteous path's abyss demon master disappeared, heavily injured and disappeared, the demon race was even more panicked. If not for the experts among them stabilizing the demon race's emotions, at this time, this force that was forcibly formed by the Abyss Demon Master would have immediately collapsed. After returning to the Ancient Barons, he didn't go straight to the Imperial Court. Instead, he wanted to unify the forces of the human race and take back the Imperial Court in one fell swoop. Yi Shiwen returned to Mount Shi, the ancestral land of the human race. More than half of the human race had gathered in Mount Qi. This was originally the center of the human race. However, it was now overcrowded. However, with the strength of Yi Shiwen's group, it wasn't a problem at all. They directly entered the ancestral land of the human race and found Yi Fan, who was currently the patriarch of the entire ancient desolate era. After not seeing each other for a few years, Yi Fan had also been bitterly cultivating. Although he still couldn't compare to Yi Shiwen. With the resources that Yi Shiwen had left behind previously, he had steadily stepped into the profound death realm. In the Xian world, this cultivation wasn't considered much. However, in the ancient desolate era, he was vaguely the strongest person in the entire Xian world with the exception of the demon race. When Yi Shiwen appeared, Yi Fan was both surprised and delighted. Every time Yi Shiwen returned, he would be able to resolve a crisis for the human race. Yi Shiwen glanced at Yi Fan and couldn't help but sigh. This reminded him of his senior brother, Huang Wuji, who was exactly the same as Yi Fan. Currently, Yi Fan had already stepped into the profound death realm. From the looks of it, he was already doing very well. He was much faster than the average person. However, compared to the expectations in his heart, he was still lacking. At the very least, he should have already stepped into the legend realm. Yi Fan was still burdened by the affairs of the entire human race. Currently, the human race was in troubled times. There were strong enemies outside, and there were also many internal conflicts. It could be said that there were external and internal troubles, all of which were weighing on Yi Fan's shoulders. Yi Shiwen, who also came from the Yi family, was now comparable to the Dao validation realm. Yi Qianqian had even obtained the inheritance of the Death Master. Although Yi Shukong was nowhere to be seen, from the information that Yi Shiwen had obtained, he knew that he had probably obtained a great fortune. Given the importance that Jun Dingtian received in the deity transformation abyss, it wasn't hard to imagine that Yi Shukong, who had awakened the god bloodline, would be the center of attention wherever he went. Yi Fan was also in the same batch as them. His talent wasn't bad either, but now he was far behind them. After hearing the purpose of Yi Shiwen's visit, Yi Fan couldn't help but be a little shocked. He didn't expect that after not seeing Yi Shiwen for a few years, Yi Fan had actually improved to such a level. Back then, Yi Fan couldn't even withstand a single move from the Abyss Demon Master. Just a move from a junior that almost destroyed his soul. Now, Yi Fan had reached the point where he could challenge the Abyss Demon Master. Next, he was ecstatic. Of the two most important places of the human race, the ancestral land and the royal court, now only the ancestral land was left. Moreover, the royal court had fallen into the hands of the demon race, becoming their base camp in the ancient wilderness. For the human race, this was undoubtedly a great humiliation. Not to mention that the royal court had become the bridgehead and vanguard of the demon race's invasion of the ancient wilderness. What was even more terrifying was that originally, the demon race was nothing much, with only one expert, the Abyss Demon Master. The others were at most on par with the ancient wilderness. Now, however, more and more demon experts had joined the Abyss Demon Master, and there was even a legend expert. If it wasn't for unknown reasons, the ancient wilderness would have been plunged into misery and suffering. Now, there was hope to reclaim the royal court and drive the demon race back to the demon world. For them, there was no better news than this. Now, quickly go and gather all the strength of the human race. I want to suppress the demon race in the ancient wilderness in one fell swoop, seal all the cracks, and eliminate the demon disaster in one fell swoop, said Yi Shiwen. This time, he wanted to solve all the troubles in one fell swoop. Now, he finally understood why the Abyss Demon Master had to conquer the ancient wilderness. It turned out that he also wanted to prove his Tao with the power of faith. If he could conquer the ancient wilderness, with the foundation of the ancient wilderness, it would be enough to support countless believers for him to prove his Tao. No wonder, even though he knew that the ancient wilderness still had some foundation, he still wanted to stay in the ancient wilderness even if he had to die. Not to mention that the laws of the ordinary world were not complete, the power was not enough to support the Tao. However, the ancient wilderness was different. If he could really rule the ancient wilderness and make them believe in him, not only would he be able to prove his Tao easily, but most importantly, even if he did prove his Tao, he could easily advance further by relying on the power of the ancient wilderness. And now, he had to break this illusion of the Abyss Demon Master. After seeing Yi Fan, Yi Shiwen went to see the spirit of the Tai Tsang Seal. During the time Yi Shiwen was away, he had been protecting the human race on behalf of Yi Shiwen. As his strength slowly recovered, he had already recovered to the myth realm. With the tyrannical strength of his main body, he was even comparable to the peak of the myth realm. Several times, the demon race had sent myth realm experts, and it was he who had dealt with them, letting them know that the human race was not without foundation. Otherwise, the current situation would not have calmed down so easily. Greetings, Senior. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands. Although he was already comparable to the Tao confirmation, he was still grateful to the spirit of the Tai Tsang Seal. Most importantly, he had respect for the Tai Tsang King behind it. In any case, as a Tao confirmation expert, he had dedicated his life to the human race. Even when he was at death's door, he was still fighting for the human race. What else was there to say? You're very good. The spirit of the Tai Tsang Seal glanced at Yi Shiwen, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, his eyes widened. You've already proved your Tao. He felt a strong source of power from Yi Shiwen's body. This was something that could only be possessed by experts of the Tao confirming level. No, but even if a Tao confirmation expert comes, I'm not afraid, Yi Shiwen said confidently. Good. Our human race finally has a successor. The spirit of the Tai Tsang Seal couldn't help but laugh heartily. He was originally worried that the human race would be weak. He didn't expect Yi Shiwen to give him such a big surprise. He was originally optimistic about Yi Shiwen. Now, seeing Yi Shiwen's growth, he didn't know what to say. His heart was incomparably happy. Senior, thank you for guarding the human race for me during this period of time. Yi Shiwen cupped his hands and said, This is nothing. This is what I should do. This is my mission. The spirit of the Tai Tsang Seal said with a smile. At this time, he looked at the dozens of people behind Yi Shiwen, and his eyes inevitably revealed a shocked expression. The aura of these people is pure and powerful. Well, this is the aura of the blood prison. Have you been to the blood prison? Yi Shiwen was startled. However, thinking that the spirit of the Tai Tsang Seal had followed King Tai Tsang in the past, it was definitely experienced and knowledgeable. It was not surprising that he knew. Yes. Yi Shiwen didn't hide anything. He directly told some of his experiences in the blood prison. I see. I didn't expect you to be recruited by the Hidden Valley. Sai, I originally wanted to recommend you to go to the Heaven Realm. That is the center of our human race. It supports the prosperity of the entire human race. Compared to the Heaven Realm, our ancient barons and the Xian world are nothing. Now you have joined the Hidden Valley, Sai. King Tai Tsang wanted to say something, but stopped. He didn't continue. This is also good. Anyway, with your talent, you can stand out wherever you go. It doesn't matter. This time I will go with you. If I lose the Imperial Court, I won't have the face to see anyone. This time I must take it back in one go. The spirit of the Tai Tsang Seal said. After Yi Shiwen returned, the experts and military forces of the human race began to mobilize. Moreover, they were very high profile. They didn't have the slightest intention of hiding. For a moment, they attracted the attention of the entire ancient barons. Even a broken ship still had 3 pounds of nails. Not to mention that the human race was once the overlord. Chapter 22. Moreover, with Yi Shiwen's help and the resources left by Yi Shiwen over the years, they had slowly recovered some of their strength. More and more experts began to emerge. Coupled with the foundation of the human race, more than half of their strength was still there. In these years, there was a trend of prosperity. If it weren't for the fact that more and more experts of the devil race joined the Abyss Devil Lord and became stronger and stronger, the human race would have launched a war to recapture the territories if it were any other race. Now that the human race's army was mobilized, it immediately attracted the attention of the other races. Even the devil race suddenly became nervous, not knowing what the human race was planning to do. Soon, the human race raised the banner to recover the territories and fight back to the imperial court. This time, the other races were relieved, and the devil race didn't take it to heart. Many people even thought that the human race had gone mad. Otherwise, how could they do such a crazy thing? Although the human race had recovered very quickly in these years, under the suppression of the devil race, they were still far from their heyday. Moreover, they couldn't stop the devil race during their heyday, let alone now. But soon, everyone discovered that they were wrong. They originally thought that the human race had gone mad, but the reality was completely different from what they imagined. It could even be said to be the complete opposite. The human race's offensive was very fierce, and it could even be said to be irresistible. Wherever they passed, the devil race army was routed. One after another, fortresses were uprooted. No matter what kind of fortress it was, it couldn't stop the human race's rapid advance. Every time an area was restored, a large number of arrays were opened to remove the demonic chi and restore the original appearance. After all, the devil race had modified them for so many years. It wouldn't be possible to restore them in a short time. The living environment of the devil race was a dangerous place for ordinary people. Just like when the devil race army advanced, the human race army could almost be said to have no resistance wherever they passed. Because Yi Shiwen brought dozens of legend experts to open the way as the vanguard, ordinary devil race fortresses could be completely smashed with one palm. They couldn't stop them at all. The destructive power of dozens of legend experts was terrifying. Even in the Xin world, no one could stop them, let alone in the ancient desolation. So, they were even more invincible. In addition, Yi Shiwen was holding the line. So, they put in extra effort to leave a good impression on Yi Shiwen. To the scouts stationed at the periphery of the army, this was enough to make them tremble in fear. The strength of this army was too terrifying. It was simply invincible. If this army was used to attack the other overlords, they would probably be defeated immediately. Even the devil race couldn't withstand it, let alone the scouts. Originally, the devil race did not take the human race army seriously and had even planned to completely encircle and annihilate the human race army. But who would have thought that things would completely exceed their expectations? Their fiend race's stronghold was completely routed. At this time, even the stronghold guarded by the legend-level devil race couldn't stop the attack of the human race army. It was also collapsed at the first touch. Even if they encountered a high-level legend devil, there was no need for the human race army to do anything. Yi Shiwen directly slapped them to death. So, this human race army was not so much attacking and fighting, it was better to say that they were marching. Basically, wherever they went, the battle would end. In the face of completely overwhelming power, the devil race's resistance was too powerless. Yi Shiwen let more than 50 legend experts lead a part of the army to recover the lost territories of the human race. With their strength, it was simply a matter of capturing the devil race garrisons everywhere. As for Yi Shiwen, he directly led the most elite troops to the human race imperial court. The most important thing in this battle was to recover the human race imperial court. There was the biggest channel between the ancient desolation and the devil race there. If they couldn't seal this place, more and more devil race would come through the crack. Bold human race, how dare you invade? You're courting death. In the imperial court, a legend peak expert directly rushed out and turned into a sky-high devil hand. He actually wanted to kill all the millions of human race army in one fell swoop. The devil hand was like a devil cloud, pressing down overwhelmingly. It was incomparably terrifying. Break for me. Yi Shiwen instantly attacked. The sword light covered the sky, broke through the sky, and directly slashed into the big hand. Bang! This big hand was completely broken by him on the spot. It was not Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. It couldn't even block it. The whole big hand turned into a sky full of blood mist and scattered on the spot. How is this possible? In the void, a great devil directly appeared, looking at Yi Shiwen in horror. His whole arm was gone, and blood couldn't stop flowing out. It was injured by a kind of great power, so he couldn't even regenerate his limbs. He looked at Yi Shiwen in shock and anger, completely unable to believe it. Yi Shiwen had come before, and he also knew Yi Shiwen, But compared to the last time he came, Yi Shiwen was more than 100 times stronger. Originally, he didn't want to make a move, but now, he was easily injured by Yi Shiwen. "Where's the Abyss Devil Lord?" Just when he was still in a state of panic, Yi Shiwen had unknowingly arrived at his side, grabbed his neck, and said coldly, "I don't know." This great devil said with difficulty, looking like he would rather die than surrender. "Then what's the use of keeping you alive?" Yi Shiwen directly crushed him. He didn't even bother to say anything else and directly rushed into the imperial court. Many human race experts following behind him couldn't help but swallow a little dumbfounded. This was too terrifying. This great devil was very strong, almost able to destroy all of them with a slap. This was not an opponent of the same level at all, but he couldn't even resist one move from Yi Shiwen and was directly crushed to death. It was hard to imagine how strong Yi Shiwen was now. Yi Shiwen rushed all the way in without stopping at all. Many arrays left in the imperial court were very powerful, but they couldn't do anything to him, not to mention that it was impossible to really activate the arrays left in the imperial court by the human race predecessors with the body of the devil race. Not even 50% of the power could be exerted. Basically, he was like a hot knife through butter. Wherever he went, the devil race could not stop him at all and was directly destroyed. With his strength alone, he had destroyed a line of defense and directly extended the battle line into the inner part of the royal court. Various arrays inside the net hall were resurrected, forming a series of devil techniques, bombarding towards Yi Shiwen. However, when it blasted a kilometer in front of Yi Shiwen, it was distorted by a magical force, which was the power of redemption. Yi Shiwen pinched a sword sign, and countless sword auras emerged from his fingertips, shooting out in all directions. Those arrays were instantly destroyed, and Yi Shiwen couldn't be hurt at all. Too strong. This is 100 times more terrifying than the Abyss Demon Lord. If the Abyss Demon Lord had such power, the imperial court would have fallen long ago, and our ancient wilderness would have fallen. The scouts of the major forces of the ancient wilderness who were watching the battle from afar were a little dumbfounded. Although they were psychologically prepared, Yi Shiwen's tyrannical power still far exceeded their imagination. It was a power that completely surpassed the limits of their imagination. The Abyss Demon Lord is already at the peak of the mythical stage. Has Yi Shiwen already proven his Tao? Many people couldn't help but wonder, but when they thought of this possibility, their hearts couldn't help but tremble in fear. At present, be it the demon race, or the 100 Races Alliance, all of them could be said to be in an era where they were no longer strong and prosperous. Now that such a Tao confirmation expert had suddenly appeared, how were the other races going to survive? From now on, there was no way for them to survive at all. But at this time, they had no other choice but to tremble from the bottom of their hearts. In fact, they even made some calculations in their hearts, and even if they mobilized the foundation of their clans, they probably wouldn't be able to contend against the current Yi Shiwen. They were no longer on the same level. Their ancestors had all produced Tao confirmation experts, and the foundation of their clans could be said to be tyrannical. But that was a long time ago, and they couldn't even unleash a tenth of the power of their clan's foundation now. If he had really proven his Tao, that would be terrifying. They were about to faint, but no matter what they thought, Yi Shiwen continued to kill his way into the royal court, sweeping away everything that stood in his way. He prioritized killing the mythical and profound realm experts, leaving the rest for the 50 or so mythical experts who followed him to deal with them at fixed points. Only then would the human allied forces kill the remaining fish that slipped through the net. There was no difficulty at all, and the casualties were pitifully few as well. The truly powerful experts had already been cleaned up by 2 batches and were long dead, and the rest were nothing at all. Moreover, this was the royal court of the human race, and the humans were very familiar with it, so it was easy for them to follow and take over most of the royal court. Yi Shiwen killed along the way, searching for the whereabouts of the Abyss Demon Lord along the way. That was his main objective, and he didn't care about those small fries at all, since they couldn't pose any threat to him at all. Still, he was disappointed that he couldn't find the Abyss Demon Lord's whereabouts even after his divine senses had searched the entire royal court. One of the main objectives of the war this time was not achieved, but the human race still smoothly took over the royal court and began to kill the remaining demons and enter the royal court to rebuild. The next most important step was to seal the crack. The previous seal had been reinforced by successive generations. However, it wasn't a problem for Yixuan at all. He had condensed the word seal and had forcibly sealed the crack. So, it was impossible for the devils inside to attack the crack. The rest would be slowly reinforced by the human race's experts in the future. Boom! Just as he was about to leave the royal court, suddenly, from the sky, a boundless and terrifying pressure directly swept down. Yixuan suddenly opened his eyes. Abyss Demon Lord! Chapter 22-23. This was a boundless pressure that blasted into everyone's hearts in an instant. This was the terrifying aura of a legendary Tao confirming expert. The demonic aura was monstrous, covering the sky and covering the sun. There were many strange phenomena in the sky. This was a powerful Tao confirming expert. In the palace, all the experts were completely suppressed by this aura. They were completely paralyzed on the ground, unable to move at all. In front of a powerful Tao confirming expert, they felt like they were almost like ants unable to fight back. Yixuan directly flashed and flew out of the palace. In the sky, he saw a huge demonic shadow moving in the space, even distorting the void. A violent aura raged, and the entire reinforced space around the palace also faintly showed signs of being unable to support it, about to be crushed. Yixuan looked at this huge demonic shadow, looked at the Abyss Demon Lord, and his eyes were incomparably complicated. In the end, he still confirmed his Tao. Yixuan stood with his hands behind his back. The surging demonic wind directly blew his sleeves, and the astral wind blew on his face, as if it was going to blow his flesh apart. The Abyss Demon Lord opposite him was like an incomparably huge mountain, huge and terrifying. In the end, I still let you achieve your Tao, Yixuan said lightly, not the slightest bit moved by the Abyss Demon Lord in front of him. Both sides did not move, but in the blink of an eye, they had already arrived in the distant outer domain. Although the ancient wilderness was huge, if the two of them fought there, it was bound to be a disaster, and heaven's wrath would come down in the next second. The vast and boundless universe had no boundaries, far and unreachable. They had already entered the depths of the universe, and many places were deathly silent, with no living creatures living in them. The power of both sides collided crazily, like two bottomless seas colliding fiercely, the power devouring each other. Circles of golden divinity rushed out from the soles of Yixuan's feet, forming a large universe. Every step he took would create turbulent waves, extremely tyrannical. But what I didn't expect was that the little ant would actually become so powerful. The Abyss Demon Lord's voice spread throughout the entire universe, shaking the world. Tao confirming experts were supreme existences, making people tremble, making people tremble. In the distance, the experts from the various factions were still rushing over. When they heard this, they were all shocked. The battle today was unavoidable, and it would determine the ownership of the ancient desolate lands from now on. No matter which race it was, they still hoped that Yixuan would win. They would have to live under the coercion of the human race if Yixuan won. But it would be much better than having the ancient barrens occupied by the devil race. There was no place for them in the territory of the devil race. It's all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here today. He wasn't speaking blindly. If it wasn't for the Abyss Devil Lord, it would be impossible for him to force himself like this. It was as if there was a sharp sword hanging over his head at all times. This was also the reason why he gave his all to cultivate. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to have such shocking improvements in such a short period of time. He himself was a bit absent-minded. When he first met the Abyssal Demon Master, that was an existence that he didn't even have the qualifications to look up to. He was just like an ant. But now, he actually had the qualifications to stand side by side with him. There were thousands of changes in life. Who could explain everything clearly? Before you die, I want to ask you one thing. How is EMO? Yishuan asked. His gaze was firmly fixed on the Abyss Devil Lord. Arrogant, the Abyss Devil Lord couldn't help but sneer. He was trying to use this to disrupt Yishuan's mind and plans. His name is EMO. He was killed by me. However, Yishuan could still see a bit of panic and surprise in the Abyss Devil Lord's eyes. His heart immediately calmed down. He immediately understood that this was the Abyss Devil Lord's psychological attack. He remained calm and collected. This level of psychological attack was still far from enough to shake his mind. You're still alive. That's good. I can personally take care of you. Yishuan couldn't help but sneer. Although the Abyss Devil Lord in front of him was even more terrifying, he wasn't an existence that he needed to look up to. Do you want to challenge the dignity of the gods? The Abyss Devil Lord couldn't help but roar. A terrifying divine power overflowed, forming a powerful storm. He was practically using his own strength to stir up the power of heaven and earth. A powerful spiritual power directly bombarded Yishuan's mind. It wanted to seize his consciousness. However, it was easily broken by the enlightening mind ancient tree in his body. There's no need to test me. If you want to fight, then fight. Yishuan's expression was cold. He sneered without saying anything. This was the first time that he truly fought with a Tao confirming expert. He couldn't help but feel a bit excited. He only felt that the blood in his body was boiling. You want me to fight with my full strength? If that's the case, you'll die a very ugly death. The Abyss Devil Lord sneered. Among the demigods, you're considered capable. However, so what? Compared to me, the gap between you and me is like the gap between an ant and a giant. You don't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as me. If you want to live, then obediently kneel down. Otherwise, today, I'll definitely take your head. Yishuan shouted. His killing intent was overwhelming. His eyes were incomparably cold. The experts of the major forces who were rushing overheard Yishuan's words. Everyone was shocked. They were in awe and speechless. He dared to challenge a top expert who had already confirmed his Tao. Could it be that he had already confirmed his Tao? Compared to Yishuan, the Abyss Devil Lord was the real Tao-confirming expert. His strange phenomenon was consistent with the image of someone who had already confirmed his Tao in everyone's hearts. However, Yishuan was just showing off his strength. Do you want to die? Don't think that you're already at the peak of the myth just because you killed a few peak experts. You haven't confirmed your Tao. In front of me, what are you? In front of me, you're just an ant. The Abyss Devil Lord said coldly. His voice was loud and clear. It shook the heaven and earth. His tone was incomparably cold. However, he indeed had the qualifications to speak like this. Everyone managed to catch up with great difficulty. However, looking from afar, the two of them stood at the center of the universe. It was as if they were the two centers of the universe. Two majestic figures stood there, filled with a strange kind of pressure, especially Yishuan. Although he looked small and couldn't compare to the mountain-like Abyss Devil Lord, he was extremely powerful. At this moment, all the major powers, as long as they could still move, all moved out. All of them wanted to witness this world-shaking battle. This was a battle between two peerless experts. At the same time, this would determine the future direction of the ancient desolate era. The pressure released by the two experts made it impossible for anyone to approach. The entire universe was like boiling seawater. It kept surging and sweeping in all directions. The two of them hadn't even exchanged blows, but the pressure had already made it hard for everyone to breathe. Cut the crap. Today is the day you die. Yishuan's entire body was shining with golden light. His body was covered with the 5 Emperor's battle armor. In addition to the Fist Dao Incarnation, Sword Dao Incarnation, and Saber Dao Incarnation, he looked like an invincible god of war. Yishuan had already sublimated his full strength. He took a step forward on the spot. The entire galaxy was about to collapse. All the stars were turned into powder. He clenched his fist and directly punched out. Human Dao Fist. A majestic fist force leaped out from the gaps of his fingers and swept out. It was like a bright moon in the sky. The fist directly blasted towards the Abyss Devil Lord. A hint of fierceness flashed in the eyes of the Abyss Devil Lord. He similarly roared and flew up. Boundless demonic chi gushed out and directly collided with the fist. It was also incomparably powerful. Boom! Countless stars exploded. Countless cracks appeared in the universe. The first exchange was about to turn the entire universe into nothingness. You're not bad. You have some means. For a demigod to be able to use it to such a degree, it can indeed be said to be unprecedented. If I hadn't achieved the Tao, I'm afraid I would have fallen to your evil hands. But it's a pity that you're going to die here today. The universe collapsed in front of him. The Abyss Devil Lord had no fear on his face. Don't talk big. If you have the ability to defeat me, then come and try. Divine power surged in Yi Shiwen's body as well. The powerful force surged endlessly. It was actually as powerful and terrifying as the raging waves beating the shore. Don't die. The Abyss Devil Lord snorted coldly. He raised his palm, and a pagoda appeared in his hand. It rotated rapidly and became bigger as it rotated. Yi Shiwen recognized it at a glance. This was the demon-subduing pagoda that suppressed the Abyss Devil Lord. His expression became solemn. What kind of existence was the Abyss Devil Lord back then? At that time, he was already a half-step Tao Vindication existence. This demon-subduing pagoda could suppress the Abyss Devil Lord for countless years. One could imagine how powerful it was. I didn't expect to be subdued by you, Yi Shiwen said with a frown. The Abyss Devil Lord sneered. Back then, you couldn't even withstand the aftermath of my battle. Now, you can actually stand shoulder to shoulder with me. What a joke! Boom! In this demon-subduing pagoda, a boundless power of rules turned into a monstrous demon sea that extended to the entire universe. Then, this demon-subduing pagoda directly suppressed down and blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was completely fearless. He clenched his hands into fists, and amazing divine light splashed out. All of his chi and blood were surging, and his martial power was rising. When it condensed to the absolute peak, he directly blasted out a punch. It turned into a huge human path world and went up to the demon-subduing pagoda. Boom! This incomparably huge explosion sounded. The demon-subduing pagoda trembled violently. It was directly hit by Yi Shiwen and completely withstood Yi Shiwen's heavy blow. However, the Abyss Devil Lord's huge martial power was still constantly surging in. He was going to rely on the demon-subduing pagoda to suppress him. Again! Yi Shiwen roared and blasted out a dozen punches in succession. The sky was trembling. The demon-subduing pagoda finally couldn't hold on anymore. After a clang, it was blasted away by Yi Shiwen's human path fist, and a huge crack appeared in the sky. Chapter 22-24. Ha, this is great, this is great. Yi Shiwen laughed and said, looking at the Abyss Demon Lord, his battle intent was astonishing. Do you want to kill a god? The Abyss Demon Lord said coldly. So what if you are a god? If you stand in front of me, I will kill you. It's that simple. Yi Shiwen said loudly, not giving in at all. Although he had not confirmed his Tao, his aura was not the slightest bit weak. A little interesting, but it ends here. The Abyss Demon Lord's eyes became more and more strange. There was a kind of terrifying brilliance. Then you can try. Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. Let me see how much strength you have after confirming your Tao. Yi Shiwen's strength had sublimated to the extreme. Once he attacked, he used all his strength. Facing such a master, he would not hold back. He did not dare to hold back. Endless divine light splashed out, driving the three martial arts incarnations on his body to blossom with amazing light, waving the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, directly blasting towards the Abyss Demon Lord. Boom! At the critical moment, it was blocked by the Abyssal Demon Lord. Although his strength had already risen to the extreme, the Abyssal Demon Lord was not a pushover. He actually managed to block it. Countless energy shockwaves swept out, and countless stars were annihilated. The most intense battle had erupted between the two of them, and it could be said to be earth-shattering and earth-shattering. The experts from the major forces who had come to watch the battle from the primordial era were trembling with fear. The aura of both of them was too terrifying, and even the aftermath of the battle could kill them. These were the true experts who had proven their Tao and were above demigods. Even the experts brought by Yi Shiwen couldn't help but tremble with fear. They originally thought that the gap between them and Yi Shiwen wasn't that big. Now it seemed that they were too naive. The two of them weren't on the same level. Boom! 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 The exchange between the two sides was not fast. It could even be said that in the eyes of many, it was very slow, but each blow shattered the universe. It was already tyrannical to an unimaginable extent. What about using speed to fight slow, slow to fight fast? At this level, it was all meaningless. It was a competition of cultivation. It was really a battle with life. Condensing a martial arts incarnation is nothing. An incomparably powerful figure also appeared behind the abyssal demon lord and directly fused into his body. Moreover, he fused two of them in one go. His aura rose to the limit again, becoming unprecedentedly powerful. However, Yi Shiwen didn't give in at all. At this time, he didn't hold anything back. Behind him, the devil summoning banner began to surge out, transforming into strands of devil energy. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, "Abyss Devil Lord, you've seen the devil beckoning banner. Quickly surrender." He brandished the demon summoning banner in his hand and swaggered along the way. Countless demonic auras surged out and slashed at the abyss demon lord like streaks of sword auras. This is the demon summoning banner. This belongs to the Lord of Darkness. This should be the treasure of our demon race. It's such a waste for it to fall into your hands. The abyssal demon lord sneered as he grabbed out with his hand towards the demon beckoning banner. He was actually trying to grab the demon beckoning banner. You think too much. Yi Shiwen took advantage of the abyss demon lord's eagerness to obtain the demon summoning banner and directly blasted out strands of primal chaos energy, severely injuring him. This demon summoning banner also fused with the 8th celestial flag. Its power had more than doubled, restoring it to the level of a divine tool in one go. It was completely different. Abyss Demon Lord, if this is all you've got, you won't be able to escape death today. Yi Shiwen sneered as he continued to attack fiercely. At this time, his martial arts was to attack, attack, and attack again. You don't need to worry about this. Let's talk about it when you can survive, said the Abyss Demon Lord unceremoniously. However, even so, he didn't dare to relax his hands, especially the demon-suppressing pagoda, which continuously collided with Yi Shiwen's demon-summoning banner in the sky. Both sides could be said to have used all their means, especially the demon-suppressing pagoda. Within the demon-suppressing pagoda, there was some kind of distorted power that contained powerful laws. It wanted to kill Yi Shiwen and not give him the slightest chance to escape. It's time. Now is the time to suppress you. I'm going to refine your flesh and blood into heavy water. The abyssal demon lord roared. His hands tore open a huge crack, and the other side of the crack was connected to the demon world. Countless demonic auras surged out, as if responding to the call of the abyssal demon lord. A small pond flew out from it. Just when everyone was questioning the function of this small pond, countless divine lights swept out from this small pond and actually swept into a huge storm. I was originally going to die. Thanks to him, I was able to survive and prove my Tao. Now is just the right time. You shall die and fuse with him. The Abyss Demon Lord dragged the pond in his hand and ruthlessly smashed it towards Yi Shiwen. Within this heavy water pond, there was unimaginable power. Yi Shiwen didn't dare to let it smash down, but the heavy water pond still smashed down, and very soon it became bigger and bigger, turning into a wide ocean. Yi Shiwen suddenly only felt that his own laws were about to be restricted in it. It was very amazing, but he wasn't afraid. He rushed back and forth in this ocean, contending with the Abyss Demon Lord in this heavy water. He had one hand with the overturning sky seal, and the other with the human Tao fist. He was invincible, and in his hands, both martial arts displayed amazing power. In this heavy water, there was a mysterious power that wanted to pull him, but it was directly defeated by him. Boom! 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 The entire heavy water ocean was blasted by him on the spot, directly falling into pieces. In the sky, the abyssal demon lord saw an opportunity, and the demon subduing pagoda in his hand directly pressed down, catching Yi Shiwen completely unprepared. The brilliant brilliance made everyone exclaim in surprise, and countless divine principles rushed out. In this part of the universe, destruction had become the only theme. Everyone exclaimed, was Yi Shiwen going to lose? Was he really going to lose? If that was the case, perhaps the entire ancient wilderness would be finished. But it was only a stagger, and Yi Shiwen quickly stabilized his figure. Everyone thought that he was at a disadvantage, but what he said surprised many people. Use your full strength. You, who has proven your Tao, can only be at this level. When you're beaten to death by me, you won't even have a place to cry. At this time, everyone discovered that although it seemed that the Abyss Demon Lord had always been at an advantage and had seized the initiative, no matter what, Yi Shiwen didn't show the slightest sign of weakness. He could actually exchange attacks and defenses with the Abyss Demon Lord, fighting brilliantly. At this time, listening to Yi Shiwen's words, it turned out that he had the upper hand. You're already considered not bad, but if you wanted to use my full strength, you still have a long way to go. An incomparably cold aura flashed in the Abyss Demon Lord's eyes. The game of probing is over. I said before, if you only have this little strength, today will be the day you die, Yi Shiwen said coldly. From just now until now, he discovered that the Abyss Demon Lord's strength should be far more than this. But for some unknown reason, he didn't use his full strength, so Yi Shiwen didn't dare to use his full strength at once. But at this time, it didn't matter anymore. He had already figured out the pattern. So what if the Abyss Demon Lord was still hiding his strength? He didn't need to know. Then let the Abyss Demon Lord take his hidden strength and go to hell. Watch carefully, Yi Shiwen shouted, and his aura spread out. It was extremely terrifying, much more terrifying than before. Obviously, he was also hiding his strength and didn't use his full strength. Take this sword of mine first. A sword instantly appeared in his hand. Sky Slash. Royal Extreme Sword shocks the world. The sword light swept up, and in the sky, it turned into a shocking sword manual. A terrifying sword energy rose majestically. Rip! The sword energy swept out, and directly swept through the layers of defense of the Abyss Demon Lord. In front of this sword energy, the demonic aura couldn't even withstand a single blow. It was completely not a match for Yi Shiwen's sword energy and was easily defeated. The sword energy directly blasted in front of the Abyss Demon Lord. Clang! In the end, it was still blocked by the demon subduing tower. However, although it couldn't directly kill the Abyss Demon Lord, the terrifying power also directly hit the Abyss Demon Lord through the demon subduing tower. Bang! The Abyss Demon Lord spat out a mouthful of blood. It was completely pure gold, but there was also some jet black mixed in. The Abyss Demon Lord took a few steps back, and only then did he barely manage to dispel this shocking power. Jet black! Yi Shiwen's vision was very sharp, and it could be said that it could illuminate thousands of miles. Moreover, he had the Eye of Salvation, so he was sure that he definitely didn't see wrongly. Aha, I understand now. Abyss Demon Lord, you must have forcefully confirmed your Tao and suffered Tao injuries, right? No wonder you didn't dare to use your full strength to fight against me. So it turns out that you're afraid of worsening your injuries. Countless thoughts turned in his mind, and very soon, he completely discovered the secret of the Abyss Demon Lord. There was a shocking light in the Abyss Demon Lord's eyes, and his expression became even colder. What? The Abyss Demon Lord is actually injured? No way. No wonder he can't use his full strength. But to be able to force the Abyss Demon Lord to this point, Yi Shiwen is so strong, so powerful. This Abyss Demon Lord actually hid his strength, What should we do? What should we do if Yi Shiwen fails? For a moment, everyone in the ancient desolation was discussing. This battle was too profound for them, and they didn't understand too much. They could only feel that the battle between the two had turned into laws, and it was extremely terrifying. Looks like I can only use my full strength. This is what you forced me to do. Even if my injuries worsen, as long as I can get rid of you, everything will be worth it. Chapter 22-25. The aura of Tao validation finally emerged from the Abyss Demon Lord, and an extremely terrifying aura spread out. That terrifying power overflowed in all directions. Everyone who was far away, even though they were thousands of miles away, almost beyond the range of divine senses, they could still feel the terror of this aura. It was completely unimaginable. Compared to before, it was many times more tyrannical. This is the true strength of the Abyss Demon Lord. It's too strong. He can kill me from afar. Tao validation, Tao validation. This is the level of a Tao validation expert. Yi Shiwen was fearless and said, "This is a bit interesting. If it was just the level just now, I also can't test how strong I am." His words caused everyone to go a little crazy. Such a terrifying abyssal demon king was actually just a whetstone in his eyes, a mere tool to test his strength. Just how strong was he? Kid, wait until you can survive before being arrogant. The Abyss Demon Lord sneered. At this moment, Yi Shiwen made his move. His left hand directly blasted out a human path fist, forming a human path world, pushing everything away, directly destroying everything. His right hand had turned into the sky-overturning seal, and it seemed as if it was going to smash the heavens as it surged over. These two peerless martial techniques erupted with billions of rays of light and filled the entire sky. These two martial techniques had already reached the level of skill nearing Tao in Yi Shiwen's hands. They had transformed into a terrifying energy storm. The universe had turned into nothingness, and the surrounding stars had already exploded due to their attacks. The Abyss Demon Lord's face revealed a somewhat incredulous expression. Yi Shiwen actually took advantage of the moment when he was releasing his strength, and took advantage of the loophole that appeared in the defense to attack, directly blasting in front of him. "Watch carefully, I'll get rid of you in one go," Yi Shiwen roared, and the two martial arts roared like a long dragon, going straight for the Abyss Demon Lord's weakness. Boom! Sure enough, as he expected, he directly seized the Abyss Demon Lord's weakness. This was not considered a weakness at all. It could only be said that the Abyss Demon Lord had hidden his strength too deeply at the beginning and couldn't release it for a while, which gave Yi Shiwen a chance. If he had paid attention to Yi Shiwen earlier, then he wouldn't have suffered such a disaster. This was an attack with extreme power, a terrifying attack that could slaughter gods. Even an Abyssal Demon Lord could not ignore this attack. Yi Shiwen's fist directly smashed into the Abyss Devil Lord's body, shattering all of his defenses. Whatever devil chi it was, it instantly collapsed, and then Yi Shiwen's fist smashed into it. It formed a huge mushroom cloud that slowly rose into the air. Bang! Then, a figure flew out from the huge mushroom cloud. It was none other than the Abyssal Demon Lord. A huge hole was blasted through the Abyssal Demon Lord's chest, and the scene on the other side could be seen. His head was also smashed by the sky-turning seal. Cracks appeared, and blood flowed out. Everyone was shocked. God slaying, this was a true God slaying. A Tao, confirming expert, was a god. However, such a god was about to be killed by Yi Shiwen in front of everyone's eyes. He really had the strength to slay a god. No, he was a god now. But what they didn't expect was that Yi Shiwen's battle had only just begun. He finally got the upper hand. How could he let the Abyssal Demon Lord escape? His hands suddenly grabbed toward the void. Emergent's immortal exterminating saber appeared in his left hand, and Sky's splitting saber appeared in his right hand. The saber and sword combined, and a shocking divine light burst out, sweeping out like a pillar. Each of these sabers and swords could be said to be rare divine weapons. At this moment, all of them were in his hands, and each of them had the power to destroy heaven and earth. For a moment, the saber aura and sword aura were like the yellow river, rushing out, and in an instant they covered the sky and the earth. Just now was just the beginning, and this was Yi Shiwen's killer move. At this moment, he had already gone crazy from killing, and wanted to take the opportunity to kill the Abyssal Demon Lord in one fell swoop. It could be said that he had already gone crazy to the extreme. Boom! This terrifying torrent directly surged into the body of the Abyssal Demon Lord, twisting his physical body and causing it to explode on the spot. And it wasn't just ordinary fragmentation, but an explosion. His physical body was instantly blasted into pieces, and it was as if he was killed by Yi Shiwen in an instant. Even the most imaginative person would never have thought that such a shocking scene would appear in front of them. Yi Shiwen's strength was simply so strong that it didn't seem to be from the mortal world. But what was even more unexpected was that after suffering such a terrifying blow, not only did the Abyssal Demon Lord not die, but on the contrary, the remaining head let out an earth-shattering demonic roar, and then his body actually reassembled in front of everyone's eyes. All the divine power in his body was burning, and it madly reassembled his physical body together, and his face became even paler. Obviously, although he wasn't killed directly, he was severely injured, and it wasn't as good as the others thought. This was a terrifying power at the pinnacle. The whole scene, after Yi Shiwen exerted his full strength, turned around. He was actually suppressing a true Dao expert and beating him up. They all knew from the words of the Abyssal Demon Lord just now that Yi Shiwen probably hadn't reached the righteous path. But this was the truly terrifying part. He was able to suppress a Dao expert before reaching the Dao, and if he reached the Dao, then it would be terrible. Such a result, such a speculation, made everyone's breath stop at once. He almost killed a deity who had proven his Dao. Is he really going to kill a god today? It's over. If he doesn't die today, we will never have the chance to raise our heads in front of the human race in the future. At this instant, a different feeling emerged in everyone's heart, and they were completely shocked. The legendary omnipotent god was actually heavily injured, and he was even suppressed and beaten up. Yi Shiwen, I'm going to kill you. The Abyssal Demon Lord finally went crazy. Originally, he had always been high and mighty, and didn't take Yi Shiwen seriously. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen was the one who injured him? This blow not only consumed a lot of his martial power to recover, but most importantly, it also triggered the Dao injuries in his body, making him even more injured. If this continued, he was afraid that he would die just after reaching the Dao. His body was constantly regenerating. His vitality was abundant and terrifying. The wound that Yi Shiwen had inflicted a moment ago had disappeared in an instant. This was the fearsomeness of a divine shell. It was impossible to understand it without possessing a divine shell. However, Yi Shiwen wasn't bad with the Phoenix regeneration technique to protect his body. Even if it wasn't the divine shell, he still had the recovery ability to compete with the divine shell. With just you, Yi Shiwen didn't give up. How could he just watch the Abyssal Demon Lord recover? That was absolutely impossible. Yi Shiwen, you're definitely going to die today. The Abyssal Demon Lord roared, conjured a blood-red pill, and directly swallowed it. Boom! The aura on his body rose again, and a terrifying aura swept out. His life was burning. However, he had already been forced to this extent by Yi Shiwen. So, how could he care so much? For him, there was no more miserable situation than the current one. His eyes were bloodshot, staring at Yi Shiwen. His expression was a little crazy, to say that he was willing to perish together with Yi Shiwen. He directly stepped out, and after swallowing the pill, the injuries on his body instantly healed, and then directly flew out, rushing together with Yi Shiwen. Boom! 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 The two of them launched a shocking battle in the universe. Yi Shiwen's martial arts was to attack, attack, and attack. At this time, the Abyssal Demon Lord was also bloodshot, crazy, and wanted to perish together with Yi Shiwen. This was an extremely terrifying battle, The conflict between the two had turned the entire universe into ashes. There was no way to repair it. A large amount of chaos directly leaked out. At this time, the Abyssal Demon Lord had already been forced to the peak, not holding back at all. Yishiwen actually could not do anything to the Abyssal Demon Lord for a while. But at this time, Yishiwen was not in a hurry. The Abyssal Demon Lord was just relying on the power of this pill, but it could not be repeated. If he swallowed another pill, the Abyssal Demon Lord would not even need to do anything. The Abyssal Demon Lord would be stuffed to death by these pills. It was impossible to swallow endlessly. Boom! 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 As the two sides fought, they had already surpassed the mythical level and reached the god level. The nomological laws were as sharp as knives, and they blasted open wounds on the two of them. However, the two of them had mostly recovered in the span of a breath. The Abyssal Demon Lord's divine shell was invincible, and Yishiwen had the Phoenix regeneration technique. It was not inferior to the Abyssal Demon Lord at all. It could be said that Yishiwen had encountered the most terrifying opponent in his entire life. This was the first time that he had confronted an expert of this level. He had no way out. He could only succeed. He couldn't afford to fail because the consequences would be disastrous if he failed. This battle lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. In these 10 days, they did not hold back at all, using all their strength, using all kinds of methods, wanting to kill each other, but unfortunately, it was useless. Both of them were stronger than the other party expected, especially Yishiwen, with the body of a demigod. Fighting until now was almost unimaginable. And the Abyssal Demon Lord finally lost the effect of the pill. He could not hold on anymore. Finally, the effect of the pill is over. Watch me send you to heaven. Chapter 22-26. The battle that lasted for 10 days and 10 nights completely shattered this part of the universe. In a faraway place, the spectators were already numb to such a battle. They were already tongue-tied and didn't know what to say. Either one of these two people had the qualifications to rule the world. They were far more powerful than they had imagined. The most terrifying one was Yishiwen. They had long known the tyrannical strength of the gods, so they were not surprised. However, Yishiwen was only a demigod, yet he was able to force the Abyss Demon Master, who was a god, to this extent. This was something that they had never imagined. They did not know what kind of fortuitous encounter he had to have such amazing combat power. And now a winner was finally going to be decided. Yishiwen's eyes were bloodshot. He had been waiting for this day for so many years. The Abyss Devil Lord had been like a nightmare in his heart. He had been lingering above his head. Now he finally had the chance to eradicate him. Boom! A peerless collision broke out instantly. Yishiwen's left hand punched through everything. The mighty and terrifying fist force tore through the void and directly blasted into the domain of the Abyss Demon Master. Without the forceful support of the medicinal power, the Abyss Demon Master had already weakened to a certain extent. The Tao injury that was originally suppressed had also relapsed. This was the most terrifying thing. It directly gave the Abyss Demon Master a heavy blow. The moment the medicinal power left his body weakened. This was a fleeting opportunity. Yishiwen seized it and directly punched into the chest of the Abyss Demon Master. Countless laws manifested, and then directly broke in front of everyone. Everyone was stunned. Was he really going to die? They did not know how to describe the feeling in their hearts. For countless years, it was rare to see a god, but this god had fallen in front of them. Countless visions rushed out, and divine light flashed. There was no more spectacular and more magnificent scene in this world than this. Countless attacks bombarded like a storm. They wanted to take this opportunity to thoroughly kill the Abyss Demon Master. Kill! Yishiwen roared. His entire body was trembling violently. Above his head, the Eye of Redemption opened, bursting with divine light, distorting the space. That terrifying power of redemption swept out directly, wanting to kill the Abyss Devil Lord. However, even at this point, the Abyss Demon Lord was still stubbornly resisting. He was a godly shell, a true godly body, different from Yishiwen, who was relying on the gilded tyrant form to resist. He had the body of a true god, the so-called Taoist body, the manifestation of the great Tao in the human world. This was how terrifying it was. This Taoist body granted him an unparalleled recovery ability. Even though his chest had been pierced by Yi Shiwen, he was still able to repeatedly attack Yi Shiwen without falling down. Yi Shiwen was well aware that this was the last moment. He mustn't give him a chance to catch his breath. Otherwise, he would be the one to die. Boom! 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 Yi Shiwen's offensive was even more powerful and airtight. In his hands, countless martial arts were displayed. A second ago, it was the overturning the sky seal, and a second later, it had been replaced by the broken sky sword, making it impossible to guard against. Although it was easy to learn and difficult to master martial arts, but it also made the opponent at a loss, not to mention that Yi Shiwen had learned all of them very well. That was very terrifying. Although the Abyss Demon Lord was still stubbornly resisting this storm-like attack, he was already beaten by Yi Shiwen to the point where he couldn't even lift his head. His whole body was drenched in blood, and the terrifying recovery ability of the godly body couldn't keep up with the injuries caused by Yi Shiwen. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, and bone fragments swirled. Ah! The Abyss Demon Lord screamed. His godly body's terrifying recovery ability seemed to have become a burden at this time, making him suffer unimaginably. However, no one who had cultivated to this stage was weak-willed. Even at this stage, he still didn't give up. Even if he had to die, he would drag Yi Shiwen down to hell. He dragged his broken body and attacked Yi Shiwen. The two of them attacked each other, and neither of them would stop until one of them died. The injuries on his body also became more and more serious. He could almost feel that even if he wanted to use the laws, it was much more difficult than before. If one were to say that his biggest mistake this time was that he shouldn't have come to trouble Yi Shiwen before his Tao injuries were healed. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would be so terrifying? In one breath, he had already climbed to the point where he could kill him. The battle between the two of them was earth-shattering, and ghosts wailed and wolves howled. Both sides were very tragic. Although Yi Shiwen had the upper hand and had unimaginable power to kill gods, the Abyss Demon Lord still dragged the battle until now. Even if he was heavily injured again and again, he would climb up again and again. Such stubbornness was simply unimaginable. It was simply unstoppable. Gods couldn't be underestimated. Even if he was a tiger that had fallen to the plains, even if he was a lamp that had run out of oil, he still had the ability to drag a powerful opponent into hell. Ordinary people would rarely force a god into such a situation. Because they were also gods, they were very clear about how difficult it was to deal with gods and how difficult it was to kill them. However, Yi Shiwen was different. Many of the martial arts he had on him had the power to kill gods. Moreover, his power was comparable to that of a god. Moreover, as the battle went on, his understanding of many martial arts had simply improved by leaps and bounds. It was unimaginable. Only in a battle of life and death could a person's potential erupt to the peak. He could feel that he was really about to make a breakthrough this time. He didn't need to rely on the power of faith. He could just rely on his own will to advance further. It wasn't just a simple advancement in the realm. His strength had also advanced greatly. Otherwise, the advancement of the realm alone was completely meaningless to him. This battle could be said to be the longest battle that Yi Shiwen had ever experienced. He had already used all of his martial arts, but he still couldn't completely kill the Abyss Demon Lord. If it was an ordinary peak demigod, he would have already died 1,000 or even 10,000 times. However, he wasn't in a hurry, because he was very clear that even if it was a god, it wasn't possible for their power to be truly boundless. They all had their own limits. As long as he pushed the Abyssal Demon Master into a desperate situation, then killing him would be a matter of course. Although he had pushed the Abyss Demon Lord into a disadvantageous position, he also deeply felt how terrifying a Tao confirmation expert was. If it wasn't for the Abyss Demon Lord suffering an irrecoverable Tao injury when he was going through the tribulation, how could he be so easily defeated by Yi Shiwen? If the Abyss Demon Lord was in his peak state, he would inevitably fall into a bitter battle. Yi Shiwen You forced me into this realm. This is unprecedented. How many years have I spent? How much effort have I put in? And how many geniuses have died before I have the chance to prove my Tao? You want me to die, so I'll make you die with me. Even if I don't want the Tao fruit, I'll still make you die. The Abyss Demon Lord roared. Seeing that Yi Shiwen wasn't willing to spare him, he went crazy. Around his body, even the void was distorted. An unimaginably terrifying power surged out from his body. Yi Shiwen felt that he was burning the Tao fruit. His realm was rapidly falling from the God realm. However, this falling realm turned into a powerful and terrifying power. It twined around his body and turned into incomparably tyrannical power. He couldn't help but be startled. There was no other way. Although he had suppressed the Abyss Demon Lord, he lacked a method that could truly kill him in one strike. This was his biggest flaw. Now he finally understood. This was an opportunity that could only be comprehended in a battle of life and death. Even if someone said this before, Yi Shiwen wouldn't really feel anything. In the past, he had relied on deity-level martial arts to compete. They were very strong. Even among the deities, they were considered tyrannical. However, it was still not enough. This was because his opponents were also deities. Those deity-level martial arts were simply martial arts created by the deities themselves. If he wanted to deal with them, he could use conventional methods. However, he lacked the ability to kill them in one strike. It was very easy to be forced into a dead end like this. He began to burn the Tao fruit. Even in the midst of battle, he had already begun to be distracted. He was thinking about how to cultivate a method that could kill him in one strike. It would be his trump card. Boom! Unbeknownst to him, the Abyssal Demon Lord had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. His speed was already incomparably fast, and after burning his Tao fruit, his power had suddenly risen to another peak. Bang! Yi Shiwen was directly hit by a punch. His whole body flew out. His gilded tyrant form was smashed open. It could be seen how terrifying this punch was. However, his gilded tyrant form was extraordinary. Coupled with the Phoenix regeneration technique, his body was almost restored in midair while he was still flying in the sky. It's useless. Even if you recover, you are not a god's shell. It's impossible for you to bear the power of the gods. The Abyss Demon Lord roared. His eyes were completely red and full of madness. He just wanted to tear Yi Shiwen's body into thousands of pieces. In order to deal with Yi Shiwen, he had to fall from the Tao-confirming realm. It was difficult to understand how heavy the price he had to bear. The Abyss Demon Lord had already caught up. He launched another powerful punch. Bang! Half of Yi Shiwen's body exploded. There was a powerful force surging wildly in it. The power brought by burning the Tao fruit was too terrifying. It was almost like a god sacrificing his own cultivation to the heavens to borrow power from the heavens for a short period of time. In this world, everything was equal. The more precious the object sacrificed, the more precious the power that could be exchanged for. Moreover, it was the cultivation of the gods, which was rarely seen since ancient times. In an instant, the situation that was originally suppressed by Yi Shiwen was changed. He suddenly gained the upper hand. Yi Shiwen's whole body was blasted away like a meteor. His whole body seemed to be shattered. Blood was flowing everywhere. Chapter 22-27. Yi Shiwen was blown away. He was filled with regret. If he had a sure-kill technique, he would have already killed the Abyss Demon Lord, not to mention the opportunity to burn his Tao fruit. Or if he could prove his Tao, the Abyss Demon Lord would not be able to withstand a single blow. Sky-turning seal, 3 seals combined into one, was indeed powerful. It could be said to be a top-notch divine martial art. There was no problem for it to dominate below demigod level. However, to kill the Abyss Demon Lord with 3 seals combined into one was still lacking. His comprehension was not enough. Originally, he thought he had already comprehended Sky-turning seal to the extreme. However, now that he had reached this point, he realized that he was still far from it. There were still many mysteries in Sky-turning seal that he did not know. He needed time to deduce them. Human Tao Fist was still lacking. If he had already mastered 6 paths of Reincarnation Fist, he would be able to kill the Abyss Demon Lord with one punch. There was no need to worry about any side effects. Yi Shiwen was a bit crazy. However, being forced to this point, there was no other way. Countless techniques flashed through his mind. He wanted to find one that could instantly kill the Abyss Demon Lord. In reality, he was also resisting with all his strength. Although the Abyss Demon Lord had reached the peak, it was still not enough to kill him. Before, he could not kill the Abyss Demon Lord. Now, the Abyss Demon Lord also could not instantly kill him. Precisely because it was difficult to kill a master at this level, the divine war would often last for hundreds or thousands of years, especially when the realm was almost the same. Anyway, the time of the gods was infinite. The passing of time was meaningless to them. His gilded tyrant form was not ordinary either. It could compete with the divine body and not be at a disadvantage. It's useless. In front of my current strength, you don't even have the power to resist. The Abyss Demon Lord roared. His hair and beard fluttered in the wind. However, Yi Shiwen was not completely helpless. He simply used the flag to protect himself and completely blocked the Abyss Demon Lord's attack. The flag had both offense and defense. It was a sacred tool of the demon race. Coupled with the protection of the 5 elements formation, it barely blocked the Abyss Demon Lord's attack. The Abyssal Demon Master's attacks were even faster. He was very clear that he didn't have much time. He didn't have time to wait. Every single one of his attacks had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Even the demon beckoning banner kept shaking as if it was about to collapse. You've learned a lot, but it's not refined enough. So today, you will die. Abyssal Demon Lord roared. Yi Shiwen sneered. There are countless martial arts paths in the world. There are 3,000 great Daos, and every one of them can be proven. How do you know that I can't? Under the attack of the Abyssal Demon Lord, he didn't retreat at all. Within his body, the mysterious space was burning frantically. At this time, he was also frantically making deductions. Kill with one strike. I want to kill with one strike. His heart was roaring with rage. He was trying to simulate the Extreme King Sword Shock's heaven and earth. Right now, the only way he would be able to kill his opponent in one hit was through the last sword of the Extreme King Sword Shock's heaven and earth. The true sword of the Emperor. He had only learned a little about this sword, but it was the true essence of the Extreme King's sword. I'm going all out. Kill. I'll burn 3,000 years of my lifespan to deduce it. Yi Shiwen was going crazy at the last moment. He was burning his own lifespan to deduce the Emperor tyrannical descent. If it was before, he definitely wouldn't be so desperate. As a human, he didn't follow the right path. He only had 10,000 years of lifespan. He would be crazy to burn 3,000 years of his lifespan. With 3,000 years of lifespan, the probability of him proving his Tao would greatly increase. But now he didn't care so much. Anyway, he was only half a step away from proving his Tao. As long as he really stepped into proving his Tao, his lifespan would be unlimited. For him, it didn't matter. Burning 3 years of his lifespan was naturally very amazing. In just a short period of time, he was able to deduce it. Using 3,000 years of his lifespan in exchange for mastery of this move was worth it. Bang! 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 The Abyssal Demon Lord's attacks were getting more and more urgent. Time was getting shorter and shorter, so he was completely crazy. He punched the demon flag, and cracks appeared. This was the craziest part. Abyssal Demon Lord, have you fought enough? Today, I will send you to heaven. Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and the space breaker appeared in his hand. Then, a sword light rushed out and transformed the surrounding area into a domain of swordsmanship. He had transformed into an emperor at this moment, a true emperor of swords. This was the feeling of a true emperor of the way of the sword that had come from ancient times. The Abyssal Demon Lord's expression changed slightly. He felt that something was amiss. This power was too terrifying. The surrounding spirit chi within 10 million miles had been sucked dry by Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had undergone an astonishing transformation just now. Burning 3,000 years of his lifespan wasn't the only thing that had improved his king's tyrannical descent. It should be said that Yi Shiwen's swordsmanship cultivation had skyrocketed. It wasn't as simple as King's tyrannical descent. The royal shocks the world wasn't so much a sword skill. It was more like a sword will. The King Descends was the highest level of sword will. In order to reach that level, one had to have a lot of foundation work in the beginning. So even the Abyssal Demon Lord could feel that Yi Shiwen was undergoing a shocking transformation. Take this! Boom! The sky-splitting sword in Yi Shiwen's hand erupted with blazing rays of light. It swept across half of the universe. Countless Tao patterns covered the surface of the sword. They emerged and formed a huge sword character. Yi Shiwen was the emperor of the sword. He controlled all the sword principles in the world. Bang! The sword intent that swept across half the universe swept into the Abyssal Demon Lord's body. It instantly shattered everything. All of his defenses could not stop this sword. Poochie! The sword light pierced through the Abyssal Demon Lord's body. This was a terrifying power. Even the Abyssal Demon Lord, who had burned his Tao fruit, could not stop it. Huff, huff! The Abyssal Demon Lord gasped for breath. He could feel the energy in his body fading away. The energy that he obtained by burning his Tao fruit was also rapidly fading away. Without the support of this energy, his weakness became even more severe. In fact, it was even more terrifying than before. He could not even maintain the Doctrine Realm. Without a way to maintain the Doctrine Realm power, one did not need to think to know what would happen to him in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen also seemed to have used up all the power in his body. That sword was extremely powerful, but Yi Shiwen, who had pushed the sword intent to the extreme, had also used up all of his power. White hair appeared on his head. This life force had been burned for 3,000 years. Almost all of the life force in his body had been used up, but the effects were very obvious. The Abyssal Demon Lord was finished. Without the Tao fruit to protect him, he was at most a very powerful demigod. He could no longer pose a threat to Yi Shiwen. He walked towards the Abyssal Demon Lord step by step. The Space Breaker sword appeared in his hand. It was almost one with his body. It's over! He could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. This battle had finally come to an end. Without the threat of the Abyssal Demon Lord, he no longer had to worry. Everyone was dumbfounded. This earth-shattering collision was finally coming to an end. Even though the Abyssal Demon Lord had burned his Tao fruit and sublimated everything, he was still no match for Yi Shiwen. And how strong did Yi Shiwen have to be? Just how strong did one have to be in order to be able to contend with the gods and even defeat them? This was something that was rarely seen since ancient times. They had only heard of such things in myths and legends from a long time ago. Although the Abyssal Demon Lord was injured and could not use his full power, when he burned his Tao fruit, not only did he use his full power, he even surpassed his peak. But in the end, he was still defeated by Yi Shiwen. And this was his final fate. The Abyssal Demon Lord's eyes flashed with unwillingness. It was unparalleled unwillingness. But it was useless. He could not stop Yi Shiwen at all. After his realm fell, he was even more vulnerable in front of Yi Shiwen. He coughed up large mouthfuls of blood and watched helplessly as Yi Shiwen approached him step by step. Suddenly, an incomparably loud boom was heard. Then, an iron halberd pierced through the air and headed straight for Yi Shiwen's head. Fast! 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 It was so fast that it did not give anyone the slightest chance to react. At that critical moment, the iron halberd blasted against Yi Shiwen's demon-summoning banner, causing a deafening explosion. His entire body was also sent flying thousands of miles away. This is Dominating Sky Halberd, leader of the Divine Union. You are finally here. Yi Shiwen recognized the origin of this iron halberd at a glance, and successfully deduced that the leader of the Divine Union had arrived. There was some shock in his eyes, but there was even more excitement. His way of the sword had undergone an earth-shattering change, and his strength had also transformed. Compared to when he had just fought against the Abyssal Demon Lord, the difference was already like heaven and earth. Otherwise, he would not have been able to dodge that attack just now, given his exhausted state. As he spoke, a tyrannical figure gradually appeared. Who else could it be but the leader of the Divine Union? Everyone was scared silly. A god. It was actually another god. Although the aura of the Divine Union leader was completely different from that of the Abyssal Demon Lord. The frightening aura emitted from his body was the same as the Abyssal Demon Lord's. The feeling that made them want to submit to him was nothing but a god. Gods, who were originally hard to come by in a million years, were now like cabbages on the roadside. One after another, they saw them. Only some of the human race experts who had come from the mysterious world recognized the identity of the person who had just arrived. Their entire bodies and backs turned cold. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.